Good evening and welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, July 13. If you're watching live on Monday, July 13, you're invited to call in with comments or questions. Our call-in number is 769-1677. As always, you can watch us live on Cablevision or Verizon Cable TV and at pctv76.org. And within a couple of days, you can pick up an on-demand webcast of this and past board meetings at pctv76.org. Today is July 13. That's 2 days after July 11. For the last several months, we've been pitching the Pleasantville Music Festival and whatever little part that played in the enormous success. I thank all of you for coming. The Music Festival happened on Saturday at Parkway Field. It was a huge success, a great time had by all, and I think the final accounting yet to be had, but it may turn out to have been our biggest attendance ever. The weather gods complied nicely with a beautiful, hot, and sunny day. A great lineup of bands, ranging from a 12-year-old prodigy guitar player who played on our smaller stage to the closing act, the Gin Blossoms, who were joined by Marshall Crenshaw, who had performed a little earlier in the evening and came back to play a song with them that he had collaborated with them on some years back. So a great night. A shout out has to go to Andy Goodman, the executive director, took over from Saul Skolnick last year. Congratulations to Saul for having taken that festival to year 10, and then kudos to Andy Goodman, who picked it up for year 11 and put a huge amount of effort into it, all of which manifested itself beautifully on the field. A tremendous amount of help from a big cast of characters. Marlene Canapi was a director of operations. We had a huge amount of help from guys like Bruce Figler and Matt Finkelstein. Stuart Vance did all the graphics. I could go on and on and on, and I probably already listed too many people because there are too many people to forget. But I encourage you to get yourself to PleasantvilleMusicFestival.com and take a look at all that went on. There are all kinds of pictures up on Instagram feeds, and I couldn't have been happier that one of the guitar players for the Gin Blossoms at 6:30 the next morning put up a Twitter note and said, "Great night, fantastic time, thank you, Pleasantville, New York." So a great night for Pleasantville and a great event that showcased not only all that we have to offer here, but such a coming together of a lot of folks having a good time. And gosh, must have been 75 or so Pleasantvilleans who devoted anywhere from 2 to 2 million hours assisting with the festival. Cannot end without a shout out to the Pleasantville Recycles group. Showed up in force, aiming towards zero waste, composting, recycling. People assisting with that throughout the festival. A really impressive thing. And lastly, a shout out to Patty Dwyer and to the folks here at Village Hall, and to our Department of Public Works and Parks crew under the leadership of Jeff Econom. I can tell you that this year, just like in past years, a lot of people have said to me, wow, this doesn't feel like a municipal event. This feels like a real good, feel-good, well-oiled machine with a whole bunch of people who are working because they really love to do a good job. So thank you to all of our employees. And I know, Patty, this upends life on the third floor for a while. It's worth noting that I don't know of any communities of 7,200 people that take on such an ambitious venture. And I'm proud to say Pleasantville, New York is a place that not only wants to do it, but pulls it off with so much polish. So,
and our PD, you mentioned the PD?
Yeah, PD too, absolutely. Pleasantville Police Department, there all day, and a shout out of thanks to the County Police Department and the Westchester County Sheriff's Office, who show up at no cost to us and assist.
And the State Police.
And the State Police were there too.
And unit when the State Police all day. We don't usually have them all day. This time they
happiest news of all is that they had absolutely nothing to do. So it was a great event. So lastly, thanks to all the sponsors who made that possible. The tickets only pay part of the freight. Westchester Medical Center was the lead sponsor, and we're there in force. We partnered with Love Hope Strength, a charitable foundation. Those guys were great. We had support from 107.1 The Peak as our broadcast media sponsor. TD Bank came in as the sponsor of the chill tent where Marshall Crenshaw and others appeared, and our long-standing generous friends at Captain Lawrence Brewing, born in Pleasantville, now moved unfortunately a little bit away, but they're still conceptually at home here, took over as the sponsor of the Captain Lawrence Beer Garden and did a great job as always. So there's a long list of other sponsors. Everybody deserves our thanks, and I really do encourage you to take a look not only now at PleasantvilleMusicFestival.com, but to keep an eye out over the coming months as there are replays of things that happened this year and news about what might happen for 2016. So anybody else have something to add to that?
I have just another reminder that we're selling ducks for the Great Pleasantville Duck Race for the benefit of the swim team.
Is that like selling swampland in Arizona?
No, actually, it's doing
No,
pretty well.
you should see my ducks.
The ducks are looking good. People who have bought their ducks up to now are home decorating them, getting them all ready for the race.
Right.
Just a quick note that the swim team has a home meet against Torview on Tuesday night. The meet starts at 7. What am I thinking? At 5:30. And we will be selling ducks at the meet. So if you don't have ducks yet and you'd like to get a duck or a family of ducks, we allow adoptions of whole families because we hate to split up families of ducks. And we will be selling the ducks at the swim meet. So if you don't have a duck and you'd like to get a duck for the race, please come by the home meet at the Pleasantville Pool Tuesday night at 5:30.
Tell them where they race.
Oh yeah, they race down the little creek behind the pool. Down to the footbridge. They start at the wooden footbridge and we end at the concrete footbridge. And we have this year the first prize. The winning duck wins an Apple Watch. Well, not for the duck, obviously, but the owner of the duck. And then we have lots of little, more fun prizes. Maybe we have upside down duck and backwards duck and sunken duck and all sorts of.
It's a sight to see. If
best
you haven't
dressed
ever
duck.
seen the
Yeah.
duck race, you need to come out to the duck race.
This year we're aiming for selling 1,000 ducks, and we're almost 3/4 of the way there, and so we're looking forward to hitting that target.
No steroids for the ducks.
No steroids for the ducks. Ducks can also, very important, ducks cannot be put in a boat. We have
You
no
learned
other
that-
rules
you
other
learned
than
that one the hard way?
We learned that one the hard way. That ducks cannot be self-propelled and they cannot be in a floating thing. Other than that, it's all hands off. So,
All right.
thank you.
A couple other things I wanted to mention. We received a letter from the Mount Pleasant Industrial Development Agency reporting that on Tuesday, July 21 at 9:30 a.m. at Town Hall Plaza in Valhalla, the Town of Mount Pleasant Industrial Development Agency will conduct a public hearing about a project for Tiberius Associates. This is a project in the village of Pleasantville. It is the project going on at the corner of Edgewood Avenue and Washington, the former Maher Funeral Home site, 101 and 117 Washington Avenue. They have been in discussions with the Mount Pleasant Industrial Development Agency, and the Mount Pleasant Agency proposes to acquire a leasehold interest in the project and the equipment and lease the project back to the company. The company will operate the project during the term of the lease. At the end of the lease term, the leasehold interest will be terminated, and the financial assistance that would be provided through this mechanism would be in the form of sales and use tax exemptions and a mortgage recording tax exemption consistent with the policies of the agency. So that's a discussion going on Tuesday, July 21, but it does not affect the taxable status of those parcels. And that project is, the demolition has already occurred, and I think the preliminary site work has been going. We've been anxious to see it move along more quickly, and hopefully on Tuesday, July 21, whatever needs to happen there will allow it to move ahead more quickly. Also wanted to announce that on Saturday, July 25, the Pleasantville Lions Club will be holding the 4th annual Hole-in-One contest at Parkway Field on Marble Avenue. The rain date is the following day, Sunday the 26th. It starts at 11 a.m. It's a great event. $1,000 prize for a hole-in-one, $100 prizes for closest to the pin, and then the prizes go down from there. Cash raffle. Anybody who's interested, it's $10 for 6 balls and 6 raffle tickets, $20 for 15 balls and 15 raffle tickets, and the proceeds benefit Guiding Eyes from the Blind. So it's a good and fun event, and thanks to the Lions Club, as always, for running it now for the 4th year. So then the last thing on this long-winded list of announcements is we've had a few moments of unexpected weather lately, and it reminds us that the hurricane season is hopefully going to be quiet, but not too far in the offing. Please, 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 if you haven't already done it, go to pleasantville-ny.gov, click in the left-hand column on Code Red, and sign up for our emergency notification system. That is a mechanism that we will use only in an emergency condition. We will not use it for any other purpose, but you can sign up with email addresses, you can sign up with cell phones and text numbers, so that in the event that there's an emergency of some kind, we have multiple ways to get to you. At the time of Hurricane Sandy, when lots of people were out of power, some people's phones worked, some people's didn't, depending on the nature of their service. A lot of people would have been able to receive emails from us on cell phones, but we didn't have their emails. So the mechanism by which we can reach you is through the Code Red system. We very, very, very much encourage you to do it. Sign on at pleasantville-ny.gov.
We're definitely going to have something, because I'm going to be in a boat in the Caribbean on Thursday or Friday, so where something's going to come up.
All right, you're not allowed to.
sure.
You're not allowed to go. All right. Any other announcements?
Exciting.
All right. The first order of business tonight is a public hearing on a local law to establish a community choice aggregation energy program. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, welcome to the public hearing on the subject of the Community Choice Aggregation Energy Program. We've talked quite a bit about this over the last several months, and what is before us at the moment is a local law that would enable this, the Village of Pleasantville to participate in this. I'll say up front that we have a resolution on our agenda tonight to actually vote on that local law, but we're not going to vote on that tonight. The reason we're not going to vote on that tonight is that some complication has arisen on the subject of the gross receipts tax that is collected based on gas and electricity usage. And evidently some alternative energy suppliers, ESCOs, have taken the position that they're not required to participate in that program. If they didn't, obviously that would have a financial impact on the municipal participants, and so that's a matter of concern that needs to get clarified before we take a step further. That said, the concept for the program is simple through the mechanism of a new not-for-profit called Sustainable Westchester, which is a not-for-profit organization composed of, at last count, I think 41 of the 45 municipal governments in Westchester County, proposes to put out a contract proposal and get a bid back for what we believe could be a desirable fixed price for the delivery of gas and electricity to residential customers and to small business customers. The concept behind this would be that homeowners and small businesses who are currently still buying their electricity and gas through Con Edison, that is, have not signed on for an alternative energy supplier through another source, would be bundled together as a group and participate and floated to the market to see what price can be gotten through Sustainable Westchester using this larger body of customers. And in the event that Sustainable Westchester gets back a proposal from a reliable energy supply company that is clearly a financial advantage to homeowners, the entity of Sustainable Westchester would enter into this contract, and then there would be a period of time when, if Pleasantville participates and every other town that participates, residents who are currently still buying their energy through Con Edison would be switched over to the new supplier and be given an opportunity to opt out either before the program begins, or you can opt out at any point in the future without penalty. That is worth noting, unlike the situation with a lot of the private ESCOs, which have an escape charge of some kind or another, or a contract period. So the concept here is essentially a group buying effort to bundle together all of these groups, people who are buying electricity sort of independently through Con Ed. Con Edison is, by state law, no longer in the energy generation business, and so the buy of gas and energy and electricity that they make to deliver to you is a buy that they make with no profit incentive, and also not a whole lot of effort, obviously, not a whole lot of risk taken to get the best possible price. So everybody seems to feel quite confident, and I've talked to a whole lot of people about this, that there is an opportunity for a contract that provides desirable rates. The last piece of it is that your energy services, gas and electric, would still be delivered by Con Edison. Con Edison is responsible for the poles and the wires and the gas mains to your house. Con Edison still sends you the bill. Con Edison still comes if a tree comes down. Nothing at all changes about that, which is also true for anybody who's already switched to an alternative energy supplier. So that's the subject that's in play, and we would invite anybody who has anything to ask or to comment about it to come to the podium. Let us know who you are, where you live, and what you're thinking.
Evening, my name is Chuck Dewey. I live at 26 Bedford Road, Pleasantville, and I was here last time, and I know we have the open session tonight, so I just have a couple of comments. With the ESCOs, obviously they're a middleman. We're putting another level of somebody in the middle that is going to buy quantity of gas, electricity from outside sources, and they have to make a profit in doing that. My personal experience has been with the ESCO that I used for my property was that the first shot, the reduction that they promised you was there. It lasted for a couple of months, and they gradually went up. They went up to the point where it was almost 150% more than the original rate. With that saying, I say if we get into something like this, say we have the ability to opt out, who's monitoring what's going on in terms of the rates, what we're paying today versus what we're paying from them, excuse me, on an ongoing basis?
Well, so the way few things to be said about that. One of the ideas behind this is that Sustainable Westchester would be in essence serving as the agent for all of us to vet these ESCOs, make sure they have a reliable company, and also to sign a contract that has the proper safeguards to make sure that the rates are desirable relative to what Con Ed is charging. The way the thing is structured at the moment, they're going to put out an RFP that asks for a fixed price or a variable price. That is, bidders will have the option of providing either or both options. Sustainable Westchester is cautiously optimistic that they may get a desirable fixed price deal, but that in no event would they accept a contract that doesn't beat the 12-month trailing average, that is the experience over the past 12 months for Con Edison. So a number of people have said to me, well, if Con Edison can't make any profit on their pass-through of electricity and gas, why aren't they the cheapest supplier? And the answer to that, by multiple reports, is that not only can they not make any profit on it, but their rates are regulated by the government, and they can't recoup any losses either. And the best rates out there are being acquired by companies that are hedging various energy buys, essentially saying we're going to lose a few bets. We know we are, but we're going to win many more of them, and in the end up with a desirable result. That has sort of proven itself in the marketplace where energy was deregulated in New York State more than a decade ago, and virtually all of the big users of energy, industrial sites and the like, hired the right consultants who know energy markets and switched over to an ESCO and signed a contract that protected them and provided benefits because there was real money to be saved. For people like us, and I am a good example because I'm still with Con Ed, not because I think I'm getting a great deal, but because I don't know what a good, safe deal looks like, and I don't know enough about it to protect myself. The idea here is that Sustainable Westchester is engaging pros who know the energy markets and will be working on our behalf. In addition to that, it's their intention, as well as the requirement in the enabling regulation from the Public Service Commission, that they publish the results of their experience on at least an annual basis, although they intend to do it much more often than that.
That was what we asked
Right.
them to do, but that's something that I would like to see in writing, that we could see it more often, that you could log on to a website. They had said something about putting together websites for each municipality, but there's nothing firm about that. But it is, and I think that was your question, is how...
Yeah, the checks
how-
and balances don't appear to be there.
Well,
in other
I-
words, the escalations happen. Everybody's entitled to make a profit and a
And
fair.
how do we know? Right.
Well,
You know,
except
well-
except the contract will be signed if it's a fixed price contract, it will be, obviously, there's some
Okay,
attached
that's
to
one
that.
situation. If it goes
it's
the other way?
If it's a variable contract, that variable contract will require the ESCO to come in at less than Con Edison's 12-month trailing average. Now, obviously, the energy markets are constantly changing.
Yeah.
One piece of this that the folks at Sustainable Westchester are pretty optimistic about is, and the reason they're anxious to move quickly with this first round of RFPs is that gas prices are at very, very low levels right now, and that obviously is not only a benefit for gas, but for electricity too, because a decent percentage is generated with gas-fired plants. So,
When you say fixed, Peter, how long would they be fixed for?
well, it depends what the market is willing to give. You know, the same thing is going on with Con Edison. They're buying energy futures that say we need X amount of energy to serve the customers that we have to provide energy to, and we're buying it at some rate. So obviously there's some risk in all of this, but there's risk with the Con Ed circumstance too. One interesting point, and I myself had this thought a few times, Jonathan Cunningham I know commented about it at various points, is that as we're reading in the press about the fact that gas prices are plummeting, our Con Ed bills didn't. But the reason they didn't is that Con Ed's purchases of gas tied them into safe purchases and were kind of insulated from the dropping market. That can be obviously an advantage in a rising market. But the core piece of this is that unlike a private arrangement a homeowner has with an ESCO, you've got the layer of Sustainable Westchester providing guidance, and if you think the guidance they provide is not working for you, all you have to do is call up and you're out. You can go right back to Con Ed or to any other ESCO.
And what happens to the differential in between?
I mean,
That's just
there's
something
some
you roll
date.
the bones.
There's some date certain where you cease to be a customer of whatever ESCO you were with, whether it's the Sustainable Westchester
Right.
one or any other, and you go back and become a Con Edison customer. Con Ed by law has
Con
to
Ed
take you
doesn't
back.
have that option. We don't have that option anymore. It's coming through you, taking over the existing Con Ed customers through the ESCO. I mean, through your.
Well, you wouldn't be calling
Consort-
Village Hall. You'd be calling.
Right.
You'd be calling the
Understood.
ESCO. It may even turn out that you'd call Con Edison because Con Edison is still providing customer service on all these accounts, and they get paid to do it.
When it comes to ESCOs, they don't do too much there.
Well,
My personal experience
right,
again.
right. So, I mean, the thing about your experience with the ramping up of rates is one I've heard from a lot of people. The other thing is that you sign a contract and you don't quite realize that there's a penalty to get out unless you wait, the length of however the contract was. That's
Well,
not the case here.
The state got involved in this particular set of circumstances, and there was a class action suit brought out, and everybody got 10 cents on the dollar back.
From
Recourse
your ESCO.
against them, through the
Yeah.
class action suit.
Yeah.
Those that applied, those that didn't, just paid the bills. So I say to myself, what kind of safeguards can we put in there to see that that doesn't happen to the
Well,
residents of the village as well as the village?
I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time with the Sustainable Westchester folks and a couple of the people who were involved in their energy piece of it. And Mike Gordon, who is sort of the honcho of this particular program, came here one night and made a presentation, answered questions for a good hour or so. It's available on PCTV. We can look up the date if anybody wants to go back and watch it. But my personal opinion is I'm impressed by them, by the thoughtfulness of this venture, and I view it as a rather low risk game for anybody. In part because I think they're going to do a good job for us and come up with results better than Con Ed's, and lastly because the absolute worst case scenario for anybody is to say I don't want to be a participant, and you either call up or send a postcard back and you're out.
And who provides it to you after that?
Back to Con
Back
Ed.
to Con
Con
Ed.
Ed is the
I thought we said Con Ed isn't in a business anymore.
They can't make money doing it.
Sorry?
They can't make money doing it.
Not only
That's what
can they
they
not
say.
make well,
Yeah, we
can't-
know that isn't the truth.
But they're not
They
generators.
make money on the distribution.
Right, they're not generators. of
money on
electricity.
the distribution.
They have
Amen.
They've sold all their plants. Unlike the circumstance 20 years ago, Con Ed is no longer in the energy generation business. They are in
Right.
the poles and wires
Understood.
business. So the energy generation is all done in the private market, and Con Ed is buying energy futures just like ESCOs are. But they're not doing it perfectly understandably. You and I would be in the same position
They're big.
in their shoes. they have absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose by taking any chances, trying to be as competitive as they possibly can be.
So their system that's in place now is being replaced by somebody else.
No.
All of their stuff that's...
No.
No?
So this is how I'm viewing this.
Well, tell me how you view it, because I'm not viewing it the same way.
I don't trust the ESCOs, and I don't trust Con Ed. Everybody wants to pick my pocket. I'm with you. I agree with you. All this does is create one more scenario of an option for you. You can stick with Con Ed if you want. You can go to another ESCO. You can stick with the ESCO you're with. You can go to the one that Sustainable Westchester chooses. So they're choosing one using
All four of those options, I think. You should have a reason for doing any of those choices. I'm saying to you, how do we know where we're at with any of those ESCOs compared to what we had before?
Let's take away community aggregation choice right for the moment. Where we are right now is you can be with an ESCO or you can be with Con Ed to buy the supply. How do you know now?
You look at your bill.
You look at your bill, and maybe you go online and you look at what Con Ed's charging versus the ESCO you're paying to, or you compare
It should
yourself.
be common knowledge.
Okay. I don't know what I can tell you that I don't do that.
That's unfortunate. That's what I'm talking
okay,
about.
but the point is, most people don't know. You take a chance. You select one and you go with it. And if you find out you're unhappy, you switch. So fine. This is just giving one more choice. From my perspective, I see it as giving one more choice. And if you don't like it, don't go with it. It's okay. And if you're with it for a little while and you decide, you know what, I'm spending more now, switch off. You can opt out.
And then you go right back to Con Ed.
I see no difference. Now I agree with you.
That's always an option.
It would be nice.
Always an option.
It would be nice if Sustainable Westchester were able to create this comparative month by month comparative online.
Wouldn't it though?
It would be great, and I hope they do. But if they don't, we're no worse.
Before
you're
we
no worse
join
off.
them,
They're required by the regulation to provide an annual report that shows what the charges were through the ESCO they contract with versus what the charges were from Con Ed during the same 12-month period. Their intention is to do it more often than that, but as Mindy points out, the regulation says once a year. So no other ESCO, to my knowledge, is doing anything like that.
They're
So-
selling, we're buying. We should say we'd like to see it once a month as opposed to once a year. I think that's reasonable. You're a big customer.
Well,
I completely agree.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole key.
Sustainable
we're
Westchester
a big
indicates
customer,
that
that's how this whole thing's going to
Oh,
work.
I know how it works, yeah. I'm
Right.
just saying
The scale
that
that-
before you buy, you should say, we'd rather see this comparison on a monthly basis,
Oh, well, I think
so
we're
we have better way to
definitely gonna push
determine
for
whether or
as much-
not we're really getting the deal that you told us we're getting.
well,
And remember, sorry.
go ahead.
Well, they're gonna be contractually bound to this. They're gonna put out an RFP, and we're gonna get or the ESCO, Sustainable Westchester, will receive the bids from all these ESCOs. Just like if you're bidding out, listen, I want to go buy a fleet of trucks, right?
Buying on a package, you're
You-
part
you
of the
get your
package.
aggregating
After that
demand.
package is bought, how do you monitor
Right.
it
Well-
relative to the other prices? That's what I'm saying.
Right, and as Peter just explained, you're going to have at least legislatively this one requirement for annual. We obviously are going to push for better than that, and so is Sustainable
I
Westchester.
think that would be a wise thing to do.
And then
I agree.
just to make sure, I mean, remember that everybody's on a variable rate right now with Con Ed anyway. Nobody's getting
Can't
away with
change
a
the
fixed
system.
price.
It's there.
None of us are big enough. Now, if we're General Electric, we can go get a fixed price with contract with.
We're bigger as a group than we
And
are
that's
as
kind
an
of the whole
individual.
idea,
That's
right?
sort of the
So that's why I'm appealing to you people to say, we'd like to see a little more analysis on this done on a monthly basis as opposed to a yearly basis.
Well, I agree. I think it's a great idea. I
Right.
think
I'm
we
just
should.
to explain this, I just took a look at this myself. We were with an ESCO that was somewhat duplicitously named after my home state. And I'm not. That's all I'm going to say. Those of you who know me know exactly who I'm talking about.
Okay.
And
He comes from Hawaii.
One of many. One of many.
so we were at 16.9, and Con Ed was at 7.9. And exactly as you experienced, I had signed up for something much different than that, right? So the process to get out of that particular contract was fine. I just made the switch.
When you got out, you got out.
I got out. and
Did you
I'm
get any
gonna go back.
satisfaction?
And yeah, and it's going to be turnkey. But the default, the fail safe, so to speak, is always going to be to do exactly that and go back to Con Ed. And your lights don't go out. There's the poles and wires
we know.
still work. Everything's
That
great.
we know.
So,
Granted.
like as Peter was saying, this only really happens if it's a positive influence on the pricing of the whole structure, and ideally it's locked in for
At the time of the contract
at the
signing.
time of the contract.
That's
and
what
if
we're
it's a
talking
variable
about.
rate, then it's got to be a less variable or a lower variability than what Con Ed would have done. So again, you're still no worse off than you would have been had you been with Con Ed, and very few ESCOs are out there lower than Con Ed right now anyway.
I mean, if an RF
When you resorted back to Con Ed, did your rate go up or down from the ESCO?
My rate will go down.
So did mine.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So
see,
I'm just saying,
but
why
see, they're
can't
not
we
gonna have
monitor
the
that as we
ability-
go along?
part of the problem when New York State, like many other states, deregulated energy and tried to take the generation of energy out of this government construct that said, okay, you're a private company, you're a shareholder-owned company, you're going to generate electricity, but you're going to come to us on a every 3-month basis and petition us for what you're allowed to charge for it. They, in the end, government said, I think rightly, we want to get government out of that and unleash market forces. So that has happened very successfully, as mentioned already, in the commercial market, because the commercial big users of electricity have savvy buyers who go out and get good deals.
And they're big.
The vetting process.
You and me, as a single homeowner, are sort of sitting ducks in this process because we don't follow the energy markets by and large, and we don't. We can't really protect ourselves. So the advantage of aggregating into a big buying group is we believe Sustainable Westchester can get a better deal for us than we could get individually. They can keep the feet to the fire of the ESCO to make sure we're getting what we were supposed to get. And they follow the energy markets. And as those contracts come up for renewal or replacement, put out new RFPs to deal with what's happening in the market. I mean, just for example, they're optimistic, cautiously optimistic, they might be able to get a fixed price for gas at these extremely low rates. That is a fixed price, obviously, like fixed mortgages are a bet.
What does that mean in reduction of pricing? Do we know?
We don't know yet. We'll know when we get it back.
sign.
Know when we get
Right,
the-
but-
And when
but-
we sign, we'll be able to monitor it on a yearly basis.
And Sustainable
At least.
Westchester,
Not more frequent.
both by their intent and by the regulations that the PSC has offered, cannot sign a contract that doesn't beat Con Ed's 12-month trailing average for the previous 12 months. So in other words, whatever contract is signed has to be better than what's happened with Con Ed over the past 12 months. Can't look into the future and say what's going to happen with Con Ed there, but I mean, these are savvy people, I think, looking to do a good job. This is by no means a new experiment. A number of other states have used this for a long time, and in the state of Illinois, for example, a majority of homeowners throughout the entire state, more than half of them are on community choice aggregation programs, essentially aggregated buying programs to create buying power. So it exists in 7, 8, 9 states at a fairly big level already. New York has been late to the game, and the Public Service Commission's stated intention is to they gave Sustainable Westchester the specific right to create this pilot program in Westchester, and their stated intention is to use this as a pilot program that they would then roll out across the entire New York State.
I agree with you, though, in the sense that the devil's in the details, right?
Exactly right.
That's where, and that's going to be our job to make sure we look at this.
My
thing
challenge to you
and understand
as a village resident for a lot of years is that you do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay,
In other
understood.
words, really take our best interests at heart and make sure that, in effect, we don't get in the middle of
Can't get.
experience that a lot of us have had, yourself
Absolutely.
included.
That's why I did it, actually. I wanted
And,
to see how bad I was
course-
getting posed.
Very
Turns out pretty
success
badly.
story, ESCO's Con Ed doesn't, they just say, oh, well, they're on our list. How did they get
You
there?
know-
How did they get vented? We don't know. It just happened.
What I am hearing from you, Mr. Dewey, is your concerns. And when we're charged with crafting a law, I think that those concerns should be reflected in the law.
I think so.
And I think that we need to tighten it up. Even though the
As best you
opt-out
can.
is a non-starter for me. If this law is going to be passed, you want to pass a good law. And if the concerns are that, like Steve was saying, the devil is in the details, that has to be put in our law because we're charged with that now. If
Mindy,
we
And
pass
future
this
boards.
law
And
and future
future
boards have to interpret this law, and we can't leave anything up to interpretation. All of these promises that we've gotten, and we have no reason not to believe them, but we need to memorialize them in the law that we're going to pass. That's part of the
Well,
To
part of
ask
our
a
charge.
quick question, does the if I remember this right, Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit, correct?
Yes.
Right. So is there an added charge in there for them? And is that going to be part of the RFP?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
they're
that
taking one penny per
penny per
one
kilowatt.
percent of one
Yeah.
penny, but that should be in our law.
To fund the program.
To fund the program.
Right. So
But that should be memorialized.
Yeah.
We should,
Well,
we should
but we-
have that reflected,
So,
and
so
we
on,
don't.
on that point, to me, the purpose of a public hearing is you have a law, you have language in there, you hear your residents, and as a result of that, you may say, thank you very much, we're not adopting your suggestions and we're adopting the law as it is, or you might say, hey, we're going to change the language of this. Now, in this particular case, we're end up pulling the resolution regarding this law, whether or not to adopt it or not tonight, anyway, for a different reason, and that's fine. But I just want to be clear to you that as far as I'm concerned, whenever we have a public hearing like this, those kinds of suggestions are great, and we need to know them so that we can say, hey, maybe we didn't think of this. We have somebody in the in the community that did, and we could put this local law over for revision and revision until we get it right. Until we get it right.
We're all products of our experiences.
Right.
Mine has not been great. I'm sharing that with you
Right.
and trying to say what I would
Appreciate
do
it.
if I was in a position before I did that again. And that's
Understood.
why I'm challenging you to do whatever you can do to make sure that that checks and balances is in there. Because, litigation after the fact, 10 cents on a dollar, they already got your money. The foxes, the chickens are out of the
You've already
coop.
been aggravated to death.
It's,
Yeah.
everybody is, and you should be,
yeah.
rightly so.
Yeah.
I mean, offended. So I thank you for your time and
And likewise, thank you for
all the
yours.
good
your
work that you've
comments.
done on behalf of the village.
Thanks.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dewey.
Other commenters? Welcome.
My name is Joanne Campanella.
Wait till you get to the, just so the,
My name is Joanne Campanella. I live on Washington Avenue. I just need to understand why you need to pass a law to include residents without their choice, without their being able to opt in versus opting out.
so that has been the core subject of discussion, and I totally understand how you feel about that, and I think all of us like the idea of an opt-in. The reality is, and it's been proven in other states, that the rate of, quote, adoption, the number of people who opt in, is very low. And the reason it's very low is, like anything else, you're getting 8 million pieces of mail every day, and somebody's trying to ask you to do X or Y or Z. And a high percentage of people simply say, I don't know, I'm with Con Ed, it's been all right, I won't fret over this. Perfectly understandably, I might do that myself. In order to get the best deal for the biggest group of people, the goal is to have the largest number of potential customers put out to the market. So if Sustainable Westchester can say, just choose a number out of thin air, say 500,000 households, put out to the market, we're seeking a proposal from energy suppliers to provide the gas and electricity requirements for 500,000 households. They're going to get a substantially better price with substantially better terms than if they come out and say, we're representing 500,000 households, and and you're going to have to convince every one of them to join up, because we know from experience that a decent percentage of people will just say, I don't know, I don't want to deal with it, and perfectly understandably. In addition to which, it's a costly venture for the ESCO then to go through that process. What's happening right now with ESCOs at grocery stores and sending you direct mail and all is that the cost of acquiring a new customer is high. So if Sustainable Westchester, like any other aggregation program, can come and say, we're offering you this group of customers, those customers will all be given an opportunity to opt out if they don't want to, but historically the number of people who have opted out is relatively low. And the reason it's relatively low is at the point that you're given that option. Obviously some people aren't going to pay attention and it will just happen, but you're going to get noticed that this is happening, and you're going to have an opportunity to say, I don't want to participate, either by returning a postpaid card or by calling up, possibly by a website too. That was another of the thoughts, although that wasn't certain. So if you don't want to be in, you're out. You don't have to do it. But I mean, what I would say, and I'm not obviously in a position to advise anyone else, but for myself, when I'm given that option, I'm going to say, I'm in. I'll keep an eye on it, and if I ever feel like I don't like the way it's going, I'll opt out then. There's zero penalty. So I mean, the issue here is that consumer behavior is such that it is hard to get the economies of scale that produce a good price without an opt-out system instead of an opt-in.
And Sustainable Westchester is cognizant of the fact that they could be going in with a false number.
Yes.
So
And the rates are going to be
right.
falsely
So
proposed.
that is
Why
my
do you say that?
concern as well.
Because you're going in with the number of people that may not remain in the program.
Well, I mean, yes, although I think the RFP is going to say, here's the universe of people, they'll all have the opportunity to opt out, but you have to give a price regardless of how many opt out.
See,
When are we
Well,
given
and
the opportunity
what this
to
does,
opt
though,
out?
is, like you said, they're going to be given a number, like Peter mentioned, 500,000, right?
And that's just thin air,
And
but-
that's
Right.
just thin air, exactly. Please do not think that. But anyway, we then, or Sustainable Westchester, this program goes out to the market. Just like if you were going to go up to ShopRite and say, I want to buy 8,000 apples, it's going to get one price, and 8 apples will get another price, right? Now, it's the ESCO's job and the ESCO's problem if that 500,000 actually, at the end of the day, turns into 400,000. That's their neck. It's shifting some of that market risk onto the private sector and out of Con Ed, but it has to happen in
And it
scale.
still holds the upper hand because they are getting the delivery charges. The delivery charges are
That's not going to change
Right.
anyway.
Con Ed-
no matter what
Con
we
Ed
do, that
doesn't
doesn't
care
change.
where you
It's
buy
just
your
to-
energy.
You can switch to an ESCO now, and Con Ed still does your delivery. You can go to Hudson Electric or whatever. There are all kinds of names.
But I don't know how much of a savings there
Right.
is.
So the truth of the matter
Right.
is that is the ideal. What's presented is that they can go there and they'll work out in their contract that we're going in with 500,000 and it may drop down to 400,000. There may be a mechanism in there that says if it drops below
Maybe.
400,000, that we don't know that. I don't
They're
know
gonna-
that.
they're gonna
I
have
don't
some
think you know
numbers.
that either.
The only folks that will be switched over are those that are currently buying their supply from Con
From
Ed.
Con Ed.
If you're on an ESCO now, you're not included. So what Sustainable Westchester wants all the communities that opt in as a community and choose to participate do that. They're going to get data from Con Ed. How many Con Ed households there are in each community. They'll be able to add that up, and they'll know they have X number, whether it's 500,000 or 400,000 or a million or whatever it is. They'll know from Con Ed what the numbers are. Now, of course, I'm sure they're going to factor in some percentage of people that are going to opt out.
And I think
they're
that
gonna base it on some reasonable
and on
formula
experience in
and
other
analysis
states,
of
because I mean this has
those
been going on
numbers.
for quite a few years in other states, so there's quite a bit of experience out there.
How many residents uniformly have been informed of this? I've gotten it from reading the Examiner.
I know.
I don't think the village, all the residents are really aware of what's going on.
Well, so
And maybe with a tax bill, we could have sent out some notification. This
Well,
way you
well,
got to, across the board.
I mean, if we do this, first off, we're not in it yet. Secondly, even if we get in it, then the RFP process has to
We are in it because the board passed a resolution 4-1
pass
that we're in it.
that enabled
So-
us to be in it, but didn't
Right.
require us to participate. So, at the point at which that there is an ESCO chosen, and we are in that pool, then you'll get a letter that says, "Here is the deal," and essentially what you're going to be presented with is, we have a contract that is a better deal for you than what you paid Con Ed last year. Nobody can guarantee what's going to happen in the energy rates, and it's possible that you could end up, it's conceivable that the rate could, at some bump in the market, end up higher than Con Ed's, but it's pretty unlikely. So if you don't like that, you'll say no.
Before or after you're converted over?
Either way,
Either
you're going to have a
You can do it
period.
before.
You're going
And you
you're
can
going to
do
get
it
a letter
after.
that
The
says,
option.
And you can do it
Right.
after, if you miss that deadline and you're in for a month and you realize, hey, I didn't want to do this, or the rates are not what I thought they were going to be, you can opt out
Or
then.
6 months later. There's
6
never
months,
going to be a
whatever.
penalty
But
to bail
Mrs.
out.
That is another thing that is ambiguous in this law that has to be tightened up.
What's
Because
And
ambiguous?
why do we have to pass a law? I mean,
well, so stop for one sec, hold that thought for a moment. What's ambiguous?
That's a good
There
question.
are a number of things that are ambiguous. In certain sections, it says who's going to send the notice out. And then in another section below it, it gives who else is going to send the notice out. It's
Well,
ambiguous. You
I
got
mean,
to tighten it up. Who's going to send the
right.
notice out? when the 20-day period, is it 20 days from when? When you get the notice, when you sign up, what is a resident going to look to as 20 days? We need to put that in the law so we not create this confusion. I mean, this law relies heavily on communication, which we do terribly, as you just stated.
Wait a
I
minute.
mean, no,
Wait a minute.
That's not fair.
we have
Hold
no
on a minute.
mechanism
There
to
was a
communicate with the
time-
public
Wait
other
a
than
minute.
the examiner.
There was a time before the internet when they published local laws in a newspaper.
As we still do.
As we still do.
As we still do.
Right.
But that was it. Now we have newsletters. We have
No, we
internet.
don't have newsletters. That's my point. We don't have a
There was
newsletter.
I haven't gotten a
Yeah, we
newsletter.
don't have a
We haven't had a
This
newsletter.
wasn't this one. We have. You can go online to the village website, and you can sign up to receive email notifications of every single one of our agendas, and you get a little email that says Village Board Agenda, and you can click on it and see what it is. So we're trying our best to communicate. We're not going to come knocking on everybody's door and say, by the way, because we pass local laws all the time,
Understood.
and we can't come to everybody's door every single
No.
time we're passing a local
But
law.
Joe,
No, but this is something
this
where
is
you're making a
something-
decision
yes.
for
We
me
make decisions
that I'm
for-
perfectly capable of
The
for
village-
myself. If
the
I
village
want
makes
to
decisions-
join this
we make
energy
decisions for people.
aggregation or not.
Your
Fixed.
property that you live in has zoning laws. We made a decision, I didn't,
Right.
a prior board did,
Okay.
about what that piece of property can be used for.
But I purchased it that way.
All right,
Okay.
let me just say,
But laws get passed on and things get changed. They do. They happen all the time.
the thing that I come back to, and I've come back to it a few times in the course of this, is that the situation we're in right now, I assume you still buy your energy from Con Ed, as I do. Is that the case?
Right.
Um,
And that doesn't matter.
Government decided that for you,
No,
and it did.
no, because I could have changed it at any time.
Well,
but
10 years ago, you couldn't have.
Right.
And it was changed 10 years ago to allow you to change that in the hopes that we all would.
By choice.
Well,
choice.
but the reality is, you still have the choice. In this case, the biggest cost to you, the worst case scenario for you is you have to make one phone call if you don't want to be in. In exchange for burdening you with that, if you are one of those who chooses not to be in, all of your neighbors who choose to be in are highly likely to save some money on their energy bills.
I don't think my neighbors even know about this if I talk to them.
I-
None of them know. I've shoved them the article. They don't know about it.
I'm sure they don't. But nothing has happened and nothing may happen. They may not even have the chance to do this. There are a whole series of steps that have to happen before this is even offered to them.
But you're going to have a law on the books.
We'll have well, we're not going to vote on that tonight, but
Before
if we
they
have
know about
that law on the book enables us to do this. It doesn't compel
Doesn't
us.
require us.
And in the end, all we're saying is, and I say this speaking for myself, I am quite confident that the economic result of this will be a benefit to residents who choose to participate. If they choose not to, that's entirely up to them. But in order to gain that economic benefit for the universe of Pleasantville residents, it's an opt-out mechanism. So if you don't like it, either philosophically or you don't trust it or you just like what's going on now, you'll say so.
I think the greatest offense I take is that someone is making that choice for me. It's like saying to me, you have to go and shop. Don't go to Pleasantville Pharmacy. They're going to charge more. You have to go to CVS. Don't, buy your, we're going to get insurance by this company and everyone in the village is going to get their homeowner's insurance because we're going to get the best rate. It's
Well-
the same sort of, when does it stop?
Well, but you have
It's
an opt-out,
starting
though. I
with-
mean, in that
I gotta
analogy,
tell you.
then you could say, you know what, I don't want to do that. I want to get my.
Well, not if we're passing
No, but
law.
no, because the whole structure of the program, as Peter explained, enables you to go back at any point
And opt out.
and opt out. So, to the analogy you just made about Pleasantville Pharmacy, if there was such a scenario, you could say, you know what, I want to go back to Pleasantville Pharmacy. I was happy there. And everything about the way this is going to work is going to say, thanks. Good
And
luck.
I don't want to miss the point that we're not mucking with where you buy cold cuts or where you buy aspirin or where you buy insurance. Government has no business there. And honestly, other than the fact that we all need to provide a construct that makes it possible for everybody to get gas, electricity, and water, those are circumstances where we're in it together.
I
So,
applaud
and-
that.
and
but let me make an informed choice.
Okay,
Well,
but
yeah, that's
I applaud that,
Yeah.
and give me all the information,
so-
and let me digest it, and let me choose.
and
Don't
we will
force
we
me.
will let you choose. You do not have to do this.
Okay.
But if we don't do it as an as an opt-out basis, you will never get that choice. That might be fine with you, but it's not fine with a lot of people who would like to save a little bit of money. So,
Because we have to get that large pool of
Right.
people together. The buying group needs to be large enough.
But I just think once people find out what's going on, you may not keep them. I know a lot of people that, I'm hoping that it's successful. I'm hoping that people save a lot of money. It's just how they're going about it. I think it should be voluntarily an opt-in. People should be informed and make a decision. I don't think it should be the village telling me where I can solicit. Next it'll be, well, my cell company. Where do I buy my telephone service? Well, if we pull together, yes, of course there'll be a savings, but I still want to be able to make my own choices.
But
you still can.
You can still say, you know what, I don't want to do it.
You're just going to have to make perhaps a phone call if it happens.
It just
to
feels
say.
That part of it has
it's
sits weird with me as well. and I think
Very,
with
very, yeah. It's like, is this
I don't
America?
think any of us love it, really.
well,
This is my
Economics,
village,
right?
Can I tell-
and I know how much energy, and I applaud you, and I thank you for all of your service, but it's scary.
Well, can I tell you that it's a little bit false hope to believe that what's going on for you and me as a Con Ed customer right now is anything other than a government construct. What you and I pay for energy is run by Albany. Con Ed goes to Albany and says, we need to charge more money. And Albany says, well, you can get 80% of what you wanted and 20%, whatever. Con Ed is heavily regulated.
Well, electricity is heavily
Right.
regulated. We
The-
have
These
a public
ESCOs
service commission
Right.
that regulates
Right.
all of this.
But
So-
the generation of electricity and the capacity to sell it at different prices has been deregulated, and it's been proven in the big commercial markets to be a net win for the customer.
Isn't the state looking into, and Westchester, into solar power and wind power and finding ways to generate cheaper power
And
in those
Sustainable
ways?
Westchester-
Versus these other
right,
people that are,
Sustainable Westchester is going to be at the forefront of that too.
well, that I'd like to
And
see.
recognize, I mean, Sustainable Westchester is us. We are one of the, I think 41, it may be 42 now, municipalities out of the total of 45 in Westchester who are dues-paying members. And Sustainable Westchester, you should take a look at their site. They're involved in a Energize and Solarize program, which is promoting and making it easier for people to do solar energy. They're looking into some solid waste programs that might create better ways of dealing with solid waste management in Westchester, all kinds of interesting things. And, you know, it's a new organization that was created from the former Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium and a smaller group in the Southern Westchester. So, look, these are good people. You may or may not want to participate in this program, but I understand how it feels big brotherish to say you have to opt out instead of opt in, but the reality here is that in addition to that dimension of it, and I hear you and I agree with you that there is that dimension of it, is the other dimension that says this is a mechanism where government is saying we want to force open the doors of competition so people actually be competing for your right to serve you as a customer at a good price.
And remember,
But
the
you could
public
also
service.
do that on your own. You could join an ESCO on your own as well.
But without the overlay of
without-
knowledgeable
Yeah.
pros
Everyone that-
buying
But it
it.
would be your
Everyone
choice.
that I work with a lot of people, and all of them have had very bad experiences. It wasn't a group like this. Getting out of the contracts,
Yeah.
they were very sorry because they were diluted with prices when they went in, and it didn't remain such.
Right, and this is why
And
the reputations
I
are as
don't
bad as they
Trying to
are.
know what's
avoid
going to
that.
happen with this.
So this deal, the enabling legislation from Albany, from the Public Service Commission, says a couple of specific things that go to that, and one of them is there can never be a penalty to get out. In addition to which, the contract, a contract with an ESCO cannot be signed unless it's a better deal than Con Ed's 12-month trailing average. So, in addition to that, the results of that have to be published in print and given to us and put on a website. We're going to put it on our website too, at minimum once a year, and Sustainable Westchester intends to do it more often than that. So at least once a year, you can look at a table that says, here's how much you paid per kilowatt or per cubic foot of gas. Here's how much Con Ed charged during that time period. That is an option available to nobody right now. No ESCO on earth is voluntarily giving you that information. But Sustainable Westchester is not only voluntarily going to give you that information, and they're required to give you that information, they want to give you that information because they want ESCOs competing for this big pool of customers and say, hey, I see what I have to beat. So none of that's going on right now for you and me buying our energy from Con Edison. I don't mean to demean Con Edison in this regard. I wouldn't be working too hard or taking big risks on a piece of my business that I'm totally regulated about. You know, you're just going to buy it how it comes.
So how will the residents be notified?
So if this actually happens, the series of events, we participate. Sustainable Westchester sends out an RFP and gets back bids that are better than the Con Ed trailing average and proposes a contract. Then every resident will get a letter reporting this and explaining it, explaining, here's the deal. You'll be included unless you choose to opt out in the next 20 days. You'll be given a phone number and a postcard to respond either way if you choose to. If you do nothing, you'll be included in the program. If you call up or send back the postcard, you won't be included in the program.
Postcard, it's like if the postcard gets lost, that's scary to me.
Okay,
So
but
here's-
the worst case
I-
scenario is if it got lost, next month you call and you're out. No penalty, no risk. I mean, we're not talking about the average homeowner is going to be saving thousands of dollars, but we think, you know, there is reason for optimism that the average homeowner may save, you know,
Con Edison isn't
decent amount of money.
collecting from these ESCOs for billing and for collecting the money and
Con Ed
distributing the money
gets
to them?
paid for that now.
No,
That's
I mean,
part of their
if
system.
they're going to be billing for the ESCO with the delivery charges, right? They'll be collecting, the bill will come from Con Edison, and the
Correct.
money for the power, the energy,
But they're-
is going to the ESCO.
Right.
So Con Edison isn't going to do that for free.
They're paid for it right now. That's part of their service charge. When energy was deregulated, Con Ed and you know all the other major formerly public utilities became distribution and service entities, and the energy generation went to private energy generators. So what's happening right now is Con Ed receives a payment, a government-approved payment, an Albany-approved payment, for servicing you, making sure there are wires coming to your house, fixing them if they're broken, having a meter, reading your meter, sending you a bill. Nothing about that changes. That's what they get paid for now. That's what they'll get paid for in the future.
But they're going to get something from these energy.
I don't think it's any different than the current fee they're already getting to service
It
you.
won't be any different than that. You have your bill in two parts. You have the usage and the generation, and then the
Right.
service. Servicing part, nothing changes.
Servicing is separate.
Right,
The
that's totally
delivery is
separate. The only thing that's
separate.
going to change is at
But
the
the
top, there's going
energy
to be a
part,
name.
the ESCOs will have to pay Con Ed something.
No,
It's just
won't.
like my
Con Ed is
husband
already
collects money
paid.
from a
Con Ed
401k,
is
they get a
already paid.
percentage off the top.
No, because it's already structured in the way the service fees are billed on your bill, right?
It
So
would be
whether it's
no-
an ESCO now, or it's the one that is potentially contracted through this program, that's gonna be up at the top of the bill in the power generation part. Con Ed is still gonna charge their service fees, one way or the other.
I mean, one interesting piece of this is Con Ed might
You have one, so that's how.
Con Ed might compete for the work
Yeah.
itself. Con Ed itself created an ESCO, although I'm not certain they're going to continue to operate it. I think it's difficult to be a company with, you know, that sort of.
Well, they have a list of
Right.
ESCOs that you could
Right.
choose from. You could go on their
Right.
website and they'll
And
direct
it's
you.
not their list,
They
it's
rate
the Public
them.
Service
It's-
Commission.
they
Right.
have, they rate them according to their reliability.
I feel a little better if I'm going to have the assurance that we'll get notification.
Oh, yeah.
You will get notification.
I have to tell you,
But
I'm
I still-
concerned. I'm concerned when I hear a resident say that you feel you don't get notified well enough from the village.
No,
And
I get more
and-
information from the examiner than I do from the
and I
village.
know that we do not only what the law requires, but certainly much more than that in terms of notifying. But I feel it's important that anybody out in their community knows what's going on if they want to. They should know. We should be able to do a better job, I suppose, if people that want to be informed are not getting informed. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to do a better job than we're doing already. We're using
Well, there's
every
a-
outlet available, I think, but...
No, we're not, and I
We're
think
not?
there's a
Okay.
lot of ways
We
that
should
we
talk
can
about that.
improve. And I'll tell you something, when you're passing a law that relies this much on communication to the residents,
This is
you
something that
really
affects-
gotta firm it up, because this is not the first person that has complained about this. The only vehicle we have is, as we sit here tonight, and they can go on PCTV 76.org and watch us again, or what they read in the Examiner. That's all the information they could get from this board. There's
the
no
website.
other vehicle for us.
So
And we have to make that better.
So on this
And that's
particular,
our,
on this
that's our
particular
charge.
law, on this particular law, but even in the future on other laws, this one's going to come around again likely. Well,
Yeah.
it might fall off the face of the earth because the whole thing might blow up in Albany. Who knows?
Right.
But let's say it comes back around again. We should talk about how we're going to publish it,
Right.
what we're going to do. I want
Well,
people
you're
to know.
absolutely
What
right.
was the response as far as why we have to put a law on the book? Just a community
The
choice?
Attorney General said we need one if we're going to do
Right.
this.
So,
And all
I
of
mean,
these
that's basically
communities
it.
are doing the same thing?
Apparently.
Yeah, New York State, I mean, it's the legal committee of Sustainable Westchester is involved in this, and they've been working with the Attorney General's office in Albany on the enabling legislation. My understanding, and I may not have it exactly right, is that everyone began with the enabling legislation that Illinois has used for all these many years. And as I mentioned, more than half of residents throughout the entire state of Illinois are in programs like this, so it seemed like a good model. But the Attorney General's office then had some comments about how they wanted to see this thing spin out in order to create the enabling legislation in the context of New York state law. I mean, this has all happened fairly recently. The enabling regulation from the Public Service Commission to give Sustainable Westchester this pilot program happened only in February. And so everybody's been scrambling both to put this in place quickly, as is required by the PSC, in part because of the desirable energy rates that are out there right now. But at the same time,
Well, we get,
Right.
Pleasantville Day, we got our tax bills. There could have been something in there. Just saying, this is something, that's coming and that we're looking, to try to.
no, that's a legitimate point. I
Absolutely.
understand. I mean,
And you know
I got to
what?
say,
And maybe
And
this
you would have
local law
touched
is an
each
opportunity
resident.
to firm that up.
I mean, years back we had a newsletter. The newsletter was problematic in various ways, in part because we don't have any communications person here. And so everyone scrambled to try to put it together, and it costs us, I don't know, at the time we were spending $10,000, $12,000 a year on the newsletter. And it's interesting to note, I noticed in the new budget that was passed in Newcastle, they added a new position, a half-time communications person whose job it is just to be working on communications, print communications, keeping stuff on the website, all that sort of stuff. And that would be great to have. We've kept a pretty tight rein on those kinds of expenses, but the fallout is exactly what you say, which is not everybody. I mean, there are plenty of ways for people to find out if they want to, but we're not reaching into people's homes as
But
well as we
We
could.
could do e-news, you could
Right.
sign up for
This
e-news.
is
and
something
it would
also
be-
that's
it's very
affecting
important.
everyone. This
Right.
isn't just, this piece of property and the zoning is
Right.
changing, and this is the entire community.
No, it's unprecedented. We don't have any laws like
Right.
this on our books, so it's really
I mean-
important we communicate it properly.
Let me just say, just to put it in some context, and I wholeheartedly endorse your desire for more information, but the worst case scenario for anybody, I just want to remind everybody, is one phone call to get out. And I think it's fair to say that the worst case economic impact, first case, it's very likely to be favorable, but it has nowhere near the economic impact that our annual discussion of the budget and the decision about the village budget has. So I don't want people to get it sort of out of context. I mean, we're not talking about saving you thousands of dollars. We're not. You might save a couple of $100s in a year, but a couple of $100 written across all of Pleasantville and certainly all across Westchester is millions of dollars of savings for consumers. And so, I mean, that's real money. So.
And I'll reiterate, the biggest offense is that it's somebody making a decision for me.
So,
And they're not paying my bill.
right. You
So
can say
really
no.
shouldn't be telling me where I purchase anything.
If you don't want to do it, you'll say no.
Yeah, I understand, but it's a big,
It would be a no-brainer if it was an opt-in.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be having
Totally.
this conversation.
exactly. This
Totally.
It would be so
this
much
wouldn't even
better.
be a conversation.
And
An opt-in would mean that we have choice.
And we would-
you have to communicate the same way for people to opt in than you
Right.
do have for them to opt out. So, communicate, educate, and have people say, yeah, if it's going to save you a couple $100,
I think-
people will be
Okay.
knocking the door down.
So let me
can't
just,
get to
that is an absolute misrepresentation of the way
No.
the markets work. We know from other states that have tried this. There is
But
solid
you didn't
data.
try it. You didn't even try it.
And here's why, the reality is...
On my tax bill, you could have put a checkoff
No.
box, and you
No,
could
no,
have said...
No. I don't mean us personally. The question of opt-in versus opt-out. The only way the Village of Pleasantville can participate in this program is on an opt-out basis. We can't independently say, we want to participate, but it's opt-in. We can't. That's not an option.
That's not what was proposed to us.
That is not the option.
Because you need to get as many people...
It's not us. I mean, Sustainable Westchester, which we're a member of, says, you know...
Well, and plus,
right.
we wouldn't have the information to give everybody in terms of what it would look like without having the numbers to get the bid in the first place, right? I mean, it's a chicken and the egg kind of thing.
That's
the
why
guys,
I'm surprised we're putting a law on the books before we get there.
Well,
We
remember,
don't
it's
even
just
have
a-
enough information.
all it
The law
does is enable us to
It enables,
participate.
doesn't
in something.
require us.
You know,
So nobody knows
And
for
we're not
sure
doing
what the
anything
RFP will
We're
generate.
not doing anything.
Thank
in
you.
regard to that.
All right, thank you for your time, and I
Please.
appreciate your
Thank you.
comments.
Who is this man?
Shane McGaffey, I'm speaking on behalf of PCTV for this. The board meeting was April 13th that Mike Gordon spoke at.
Okay.
So if you want to let people know. that
Anybody who
April
wanted to
13th
get
Thank
under the hood of that can go to the PCTV76.org and take a look at the April 13th meeting, where I think an hour or so was spent with Mike Gordon of Sustainable Westchester answering a lot of questions. So it's worth a look. Any other speakers on the subject of community choice aggregation? Call in if you want, 769-1677. All right.
Can I just
Yes.
raise a couple things? Because I think, you know, as I said before, if you're going to pass a law, you want a law that's specific and not left to interpretation. You know, and I think everybody wants a good law. You don't want to put a bad law on the books. So there was just a couple things that in reviewing the law as it stands, there's a little bit of ambiguity, and I'll go to, and my concerns are on process, procedure, communication, and security, really, because it deals with people's personal information, and I just want to make sure when we say it'll be protected, we know what we're talking about. So I'll get to that in a minute. But if you go to Section 4D, it states that Sustainable Westchester or the Village of Pleasantville and the selected supplier will notify bundled customers of the contract terms and their opportunity to opt out. And if you go to Section 5A, it states the Village of Pleasantville, in conjunction with the selected ESCO, will notify its residents. Which one is it? I think that we need to be sure that this is the person that our residents are going to hear from, and this is what they're going to hear. So it's either us we're going to notify our residents in conjunction with the supplier, or Sustainable Westchester in conjunction with the supplier. But let's just, in the law, so the residents, you know, when you have something on the books, it's not up for interpretation. We can't say a resident comes to us and say, well, I didn't get a notice. Well, who was supposed to send me the notice? Well, it was either going to be us, them, and then the finger pointing goes on. So if we could just put up some language there to firm that up, that the Village of Pleasantville and the selected supplier.
That's a fair comment. But when we first got this law, and I know I didn't do it as quickly as I probably wanted to.
No, you took care of the bulk of it.
But I made a lot of comments to the board and said, let's work on this before we put it up for
Right,
public
exactly.
hearing. And that's what we noticed. My feeling is if anybody on the board has an idea, just
Well, that's
write
why
it down.
that's why I'm stating it now. So
but just saying it now. I don't know who's going to implement it. Are you going to
no,
implement it, or is Patty going to implement
No,
it?
Well, so hold
the
it. Let's
board
just-
has to
let's just-
decide if it's a comment that they want to
So what you're
include.
saying is that Section 4D and Section 5A
are contradictory or
are-
ambiguous. I just
So I guess
say
what-
one
what-
of them clearly.
Well,
I think we should do it because we have control over that.
Well, one easy solution to this would be to simply pick up the copy in 4D and insert it in the same place in 5A so that the copy is the same, right? I'm not sure why it needs to be in both places, but
well, that's
there
the
may
other
be
thing. It's
there may
Isn't
be
it
a reason
about
for
customer
that.
data sharing? Isn't
I
it
think-
referencing
Right.
No,
Procedures
Yes, it is.
there's another section that notices that. But that was part of, you see, the way the law was presented to us is that first it's the procedure, and I just want to make sure I'm right on this, that the process that is laid out in the law is that Sustainable Westchester gets an aggregate of the customer information from Con Ed. So they're going to get an aggregate usage from Con Edison of all of the customers using Con Edison in order to go out to bid. Once the contract is awarded, it says that Sustainable Westchester or the Village of Pleasantville will request individual customer data from Con Ed and notifies those customers of the contract terms and the opportunity to opt out. So
Right.
there again, it's in two different places that it says two different things. But
Well, it's not.
we just need to narrow it down. Who will specifically notify the residents? How will they notify the residents? What will the timing be? Because then that also goes to my other point that you could opt out in 20 days. Let's be more specific. 20 days from when what? They receive the postcard, 20 days, just so people know. It's not, it may not be a big deal because you could opt out at any time. But if you're going to write
Okay,
opt out in 20 days,
yeah.
let's be more specific.
So I can tell you, I understand your points, and I think all those things should be clear. I am not sure whether that clarity belongs in this law. And I will ask Eric Gordon, our attorney, that question. I've talked to him several times on it, and he has been working with us, another of his clients, and Sustainable Westchester on this law, specifically to address the requirements of the Attorney General's office. So I had this conversation with him again today. He is clear that there will need to be an additional resolution of this or any other board on top of this enabling legislation at the point at which we agree to accept the terms of an ESCO. And it might be, and I'm not speaking for him, I don't know, that that's the place that those terms should be. I don't know the answer to that, but I will ask.
But you see, my problem with that is, and I understand it, and it makes sense, but my problem with that is if you craft the law for our municipality, and don't leave anything open to interpretation. If the law should state that it's dependent on a resolution that will be passed at a later date, then that's fine, because 10 years from now, another board has to interpret this law and has to implement this law, because you can't just have it on there and don't pay any attention to it. So if we make it clear enough, if that's indeed the case, that we have to, all the details will be in the resolution, another resolution, then we have to say that in the law, that this is not.
And I'll ask Eric what he thinks about this. I mean, the point that Sustainable Westchester made and that our attorney reiterated to me was that the goal in crafting this local law, which was actually not something that had originally been anticipated as necessary, was to create a sort of a baseline law that wouldn't have to be revisited every time we were participating in a specific.
Okay, I get that,
RFP.
but I think that those are things that would be pretty static, or stable.
Okay, so I'll ask that.
Okay.
I'll ask that question.
Thank you. And this goes to section E, point F. Will provide Sustainable Westchester aggregate and customer-specific data, including the usage data, capacity tag obligations, account numbers, and service addresses. Sustainable Westchester and the Village of Pleasantville will protect customer information as required by law, subject to the order and the limitations of the Freedom of Information Law. Now, what concerns me about this is it says here that Sustainable Westchester and the Village of Pleasantville, that's us, will protect customer information as required by law. What law are they referring to? Because the next sentence refers to the Freedom of Information Law, and I don't think you're protecting are they only protecting customer data through FOIL? Or what law, are they referring to another law that we're able to protect the people's personal information?
I believe, and again, I'll reiterate that question to the attorney, is that the intention there was to say that both the municipalities and Sustainable Westchester will protect, will meet all the legal requirements for the protection of personal data, but to make clear that in any circumstance where the law requires release of it, we obviously cannot
Do we
overcome
know
that.
which portions of this information is foilable now? Like, is my usage data foilable?
I do not think so, but I will ask that question.
Yeah, I'd like to know what is foilable,
Usually
because...
personally identifiable
Or does
information
it be, and Joe, maybe you know the answer to this question? I think I know the FOIL law pretty well, and you really, but because an entity such as a government is taking this personal information and giving it to Sustainable Westchester to go, or the ESCO, does that information become foilable with that action? Because a government entity is taking that information?
I don't think that personal data, names, addresses, account numbers, maybe, but as long as they're not identified to a particular
To this
person,
person.
those names, addresses are protected because it's personal privacy, and there's a catch-all. You can't invade somebody's personal privacy through FOIL.
Okay.
I think it's private information.
Well, there is some FOIL, parts of the FOIL law that does invade when it comes to a government entity. Like you can FOIL a personnel record, and it minus the HIPAA, but you can FOIL a person's employment application. That's FOILable. So that's what
But
worries
that's in the
me is
context
that-
of working for a government.
Right,
right.
so my concern is, and maybe you
I don't-
could ask Eric this, is that if because we're making that transfer of personal information, does it change the foilability? I mean, I don't know.
I actually think the practical reality is that we'll never have that information. It will go direct to Sustainable Westchester, but Sustainable Westchester is our agent, obviously. So
So any security that if we're going to, if we're saying as a village that we're going to protect the customer information as required by law, can we just be more specific of how we're going to do that? By what law?
Okay, so
And-
I think, again, and I'll ask this question, but part of the point of this, to create this boilerplate law that, again, the attorney group involved didn't think was going to be necessary until the Attorney General's office had a different
Right.
view, was to create a law that wouldn't have to be gone back and changed every time some other aspect. So essentially it's saying we're going to fulfill the requirements of whatever the law is at any given moment, and then if Albany changes the law, we'll fulfill it because we're committed to, as opposed to we're fulfilling the law
I think
XYZ.
I think the only law in play in this scenario is the Freedom of Information law, because the only reason we're different than a private entity is because of the Freedom of Information law.
Right.
We're required to make all information that we have public except A, B, C, D, E, F, G exceptions, okay?
Right.
Which private companies are not subject to that. They can keep any data they have private, okay? So I think the only issue is Freedom of Information law.
So you think that's the law that they're talking about too?
I'm very sure. I mean, I'm not sitting here as a
Okay.
lawyer, I'm sitting here as a trustee, but
Okay.
I'm very sure that that's the law that we have to concern ourselves with. So if we say in a law, we will protect that data to the greatest extent possible, we still can't violate the Freedom of Information
We can't.
law. No, of course not.
I know
We're
we can't.
subject
I
to
know,
the
believe
Freedom
me,
of
I'm very
Information law.
familiar with the FOIL law.
You know, so
So
that's
let's
it. But it's
find
much
out
like-
then-
but It's
then
much
I-
like a water bill or a tax bill or anything. All that is public information. Your taxes are known to me. If I wanted to go look at them, I can find out.
Is that, but, so then that my question it holds even more weight. That because if then we are making that exchange, and now, is this now public information? Is that
It's more a matter of us having
information
it in
now
our
public?
possession. If we have it in our possession, it is subject to Freedom of Information law one way or another. It's either exempt or it's discoverable or whatever. But just from having it, not because we made it available to somebody else, we have it.
But are we going to have it?
I doubt we are.
If we don't have it,
Right.
we don't have it.
I mean, I had some comments about that same question. Mindy's already
Okay.
talking about
Yeah.
that. You know, it says that we're obligated to protect the information as required by law, and we don't really talk about what those steps are going to be. I don't know if that needs to be better explained in here, what that looks like, and
Right,
to what
so-
extent are we going to get it in the first place?
Yeah, let me pursue that.
Yeah, I think that would be
with
good to know,
Eric.
because
I-
if we're not
I-
going to have it at all, that's one direction.
I don't think.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
sound
I
like
don't
we're
think
gonna
we're
get
ever going to have it at all.
I'd much prefer not to have
Yeah,
it.
I don't
That's
want it
true.
either.
I mean,
don't
the
want us
piece
to
of
be
it,
obligated.
the
to that.
piece of it that we may have is who is involved, not their account number or their
Or some
account
aggregate,
history.
like X number
but
of-
if we're going to send them a letter, we need a list of people who were Con Ed customers.
Yeah.
But I don't think we will ever be in possession unless we, for some reason, need it to be, and I can't think why we would. I'll ask that question.
Well, you know, this also covers small businesses. So, you know, that the business information is, our business community is also affected.
And I'd
but-
be curious, just to finish that last
Yeah.
thought, I'd be curious if we have to expand on this to discuss or to sense what those requirements have to be. So we say we're required to protect it according to law, which I guess is great, but we don't really know what that entails.
Right.
Do we have to develop some sort of special procedures or whatever to protect this? I
Well,
don't know.
well, if it's what Joe is saying, that it's only FOIL, the FOIL law is clear. The FOIL law is a, you know.
Right, but imagine the scenario where the servers get hacked or whatever. I mean, are we then required to withhold some or to meet some reasonable standard if we pledge ourselves to protect this in accordance with
I mean, I don't
law,
think it will
right?
never be on our servers. I don't.
Well, that's what I guess I mean.
I mean, it'll be on
We
somebody's.
need to kind of get that a little more granular,
Right.
right?
Right.
We kind of do this already anyway, though. We protect private information, things that are exempt from freedom of information law already. We
But-
do
but
it.
is this
Now, if somebody
exempt?
hacks our computers, I mean, they hack, you know, IBM can be hacked. I mean, you know.
Right, but I guess my point is, if we're putting it in
Target
the
gets
law
hacked,
and we're
I mean-
obligating the town to, or the village to protect it according to law, I guess that
I mean, I
means
think that
privacy
verbiage is
laws
very
or-
similar to the verbiage in the PSC enabling regulation, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. So my question then, it's not a squawk as much as it is. I'm just curious. Does that put us under any higher obligation to deal with this data differently than, like you just said, we're already dealing?
I would say no.
But I don't know.
But I'd rather you ask
like to find
our
out.
lawyer, yes, but I would say no. I would say what we do already is the protocol that we do to protect private information, and that's
any
what we do.
sort.
But only to the parameters of FOIL.
Right,
If we,
things that are exempt.
if we hold it as a public entity. So that's what we.
That's what we have to clarify.
Right.
Yeah.
The other part, as far as law is concerned, is that Section 5D, it says the welcome letter, blah, 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 blah. Customers are entitled to the added protection of the mandated 3-day rescission period as detailed in Section 5B3 of the Uniform Business Practices.
Right.
So I would just put in what that is, because people don't know what the Uniform Business Practices
Right.
is.
But
and-
I think and see what Joe thinks. Restating the uniform business practices is a recipe for making a law that goes out of date and causes trouble.
No, it doesn't,
The-
because
the-
if they're
right.
if we have it on our books, that's what we're referring
But
to.
part of this, that piece of it was to make sure that these transactions were actually covered by that, which is a good thing. It's a consumer
Well,
protection.
it is. That's why I put it in the law, that it says that that section of the Uniform Business Practice is the ESCO shall provide residential customers the right to cancel a sales agreement within 3 business days after its receipt, cancellation period.
If you're talking about just providing that little part of
That's it. That's what that section is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't go to it and I didn't read it. So
not
I
enough to
did,
just
because I
reference
didn't know
it.
what it
You
was.
typically wouldn't
Right, you
recite
would just
another
reference it.
law
Right.
in a.
I mean,
in
even
a
if you look
law.
at our code now, it's always referencing so that if that got changed, we don't have to go back and change our law.
But it's. I don't think very many people are going to know what the mandated 3-day rescission period.
We may
is.
be able to put that in our letter. You know, there are some things that don't have to be in the law that just need explanation that we could include in a customer letter or in something that we send out to everybody.
I mean, the good thing about all of this is that in addition to what we've already described in the form of consumer protections, is this transaction is covered by the Uniform Business Practices, which was
In
not.
addition
was not
to, it's an
correct.
added, and it says
Right.
that in the law. So I
Right.
just, it's a good thing to have, that we are, this is in addition, and it just, I don't know, it helps
Yeah.
residents out that they can clearly see what is on the books.
I mean, I will. refer that question to the attorney and see what he says. I think he'll say what Joe has said, that he thinks it's a cleaner practice to
Sufficient
refer to the
just
law, but not to restate it. And as Colleen indicated, we can restate some of these consumer protections in the form of the letter you
All right,
get
as long
ultimately.
as long as residents know what
'Cause I
the
think-
heck it is.
Some issues are about what people understand. Most of the people aren't going to read the law, but they're going to want to know it in the letter.
But-
what does it mean?
but
to me?
Exactly.
It's also
I can tell you, absent the fact that I'm on the village board,
Right.
I would not be reading this law under
Right.
any other circumstances.
well, but it's our responsibility, and it
I totally
even
agree,
though-
and
I mean,
my point
this
is-
this is our job.
But
that
my-
we need to
and-
put the
and-
good laws on the books,
And we're
not
doing
bad
that
laws.
job.
Right, that's right.
I'm not sure that restating the uniform business practices
That's
makes it a
fine.
better.
I
Right.
just the
Okay.
residents should know what it is. Section 5D. It states in Section 5D that the CCA program bundled customers upon enrollment will receive a welcome letter that will explain the customer's options for canceling the enrollment if they believe they were enrolled incorrectly or otherwise decide to withdraw from the CCA program in favor of another supplier. The welcome letter will also explain that residential customers are entitled to the edit protect. Pardon me, I'm
Yes.
repeating myself here. It will also explain that residential customers may opt out of the CCA program at any time by selecting the distribution and providing by selecting the distribution utility or another ESCO as their energy supplier and providing the process for doing so. So what is that process as explained to us may not be, I think it's too general of a term. I'll explain myself further by going to 6A, which, hold on, let me just get there. So the supplier during the reporting period, the average cost of commodities supplied by month. Pardon me.
Can I just interject something
Yes.
there? Because that entire paragraph under letter D doesn't belong in a local law.
Right.
It's actually covered, if you just look up a little further, in B. The procedures really don't belong in local laws.
No, I was going to ask that.
They just don't, because,
Well, so, I might agree with you, but there are two other things in play here. One is we've got a team of lawyers, which perhaps makes a more complicated, not less complicated law. What do you think? I don't know, Joe. But the other piece of it is that unless Sustainable Westchester has a stable of communities who participate, who are operating under a generally common set of legal requirements, if everybody's law is tweaked in various different ways, I don't mean to suggest we shouldn't do what we need to do. Certainly we should. But it may be that 5D is there for a reason that made sense to the drafters, and we should ask that question.
yeah,
I do
it
think-
says the same thing as B, though.
It shouldn't be repetitive, but I do think it's important for this law to require that we give our residents certain notices that they have, that let them know. This law says we have to let them know you have the opportunity to opt out. You have the opportunity to opt out now and never be in the program. You have a 3-day
Sure.
right of rescission. You have the right to opt out at any time in the future, even though you were in the program for a little while.
Correct.
So the law should require us to do that.
B
But
does
she's not.
that.
But what
B
she's saying
says
is it
that.
doesn't need to say how it's done.
It's almost as if,
Well-
the law requires you to put out your trash at a certain time, but it doesn't require DPW to walk a certain way down your driveway or to put your can
Right.
back
But
in the lid on
B
and
and D,
everything else.
I agree with you that they're somewhat duplicative, but they're not in conflict with one another.
No, they're not in conflict.
So it's just sort of
But-
saying.
but-
Correct. I
right.
just think it says the same,
But it does. That's the, and it says it differently, and in a different concept. Yeah, exactly.
Trying to write it for everybody.
Right,
Trying to
they're
get to the lowest common.
so.
denominator.
But what my concern was, and I'm sorry that I got off track there. Is there any way that we could put in there that if this is a law and now it's on the books, and then the process that was explained to us has to change, can we somehow say that that was agreed upon, the process that was agreed upon by the Village of Pleasant, maybe through resolution or whatever, and that if that process changes, that it would need an additional authorization from the village?
Like
a change in the opt-out procedure.
Yeah, something that would change the way of what you're writing here, of something, say Sustainable Westchester comes back to us and says, you know, we thought we would be able to do it this way, and that's the way we wrote our law, but we can't do it that way now because something else changed, God knows what, but so okay, that's all right. So I'm sure that, you know, we could say we would need to approve that other process or that other procedure. So if we put that in the law, that if it's different than what was initially presented, that the Village of Pleasantville would have to approve that through resolution or whatever.
Well, like,
To
I mean,
adjust
if you,
it or-
different verbally in their presentation.
Yeah, like what?
I mean, I don't know that.
You just explained to residents how you believe this is going to happen, and in good faith, because this is what's been told to you. What if that has to change?
But haven't the material pieces of this and the core pieces of it are the pieces the PSC required in the enabling regulation? Those are the pieces that say everybody has to have a chance to opt out. Everybody has to have be entitled to leave at any time without penalties. That's what's memorialized
Well, then
here.
just say that.
Isn't that what it says here?
No,
I mean,
it goes-
if you and I were writing it, it would be fewer words. But I'm not sure that the fact that stuff is said in more than one place is ultimately a problem, given the fact that we are all trying to carry a roughly common umbrella with other communities. So, I mean, if we find something we have a problem with, we have to fix it. If we think 5B and 5D are sort of duplicative but not wrong, I'm inclined to think that I'll mention that to our attorney, who is part of the group that is drafting this, and say, you know, why is that? But unless it's a problem, I don't think we need to change it.
But not a but more specific. Like it's either one or the other. It's either like my first point between section A and D.
No, I understand that point.
You know,
Where
you get
in one
that?
place,
Like,
in one place it
one
says
thing, yeah.
Sustainable Westchester, the ESCO and or the village,
Yeah,
and the other
right.
place it
Just
says.
say one thing, whatever
No, I
it is.
understand that point. I
don't
think
care
that's a
who
good
it
point.
is,
But in this case, you know, 5B and 5D, I think, is it the most artfully drafted law? No. Did it cost us a dime? No. Somebody else drafted it, and I'm
I don't know. I spent about
Right.
5 hours on it yesterday.
yeah,
so
but
can, you
unfortunately,
know.
fortunately for
Fortunately,
us,
I don't get paid by the hour.
we're all in the indentured servitude category. So
So I think that if we can firm this up and afford the protections that people are asking for, and you know, I do go back to communication that, you know, we keep saying about this letter and about sending in the postcard or call it. Be specific about it. Be very specific. You know, are we sending the letter? When are we sending the letter? I think when we pass the resolution, we're paying for all of this. You know, you know.
Oh, not necessarily.
And,
I mean, one of the options presented by Sustainable Westchester is they, on behalf of all the communities, could send the letters. They think that some communities, and very possibly will be among them, are going to want to send their own letter. Or
Joe-
maybe
that's what Joe
we'll
had
both
said,
send a
too.
letter. But the idea was that the administrative fee that Sustainable Westchester gets does two things. One, it funds their professionals who negotiate these contracts. And two, it funds a piece of customer service and customer management that would include these letters and also would include receiving phone calls on behalf of customers if there was a problem to be resolved.
well, that would maybe, you know, somehow we should memorialize that
But
because.
I don't think here.
So where?
The goal of this law, at the point at which there is something we're agreeing to, contract terms, that's where we're going to say, okay, here's what you're going to charge, here's how often you're going to change it, here's how often you're going to tell us how much it is.
What about the surcharge? The 1/10 of 1 penny, even though it's so minimus, don't you think shouldn't that be in the law? That be added to the law. You know, it's minimus. I understand, but he did say that they were going to charge us that.
And I think that's also in the PSC regulations. I mean,
Well,
part
let's just check
of
that
the
because-
problem is you end up with the same
That
piece of
means-
information in too
And
many
that-
places.
That can change. I mean, you have
Right.
to be aware that the PSC's order can be amended from time to time. It says that very clearly. So that 1/10 of 1 penny of 1% may actually increase. They'll have to go to the PSC But
But
we
it
are
shouldn't
not
be
controlling
codified in
that.
the law or
And we don't
codified.
control that. All we can, all we have to do is understand we're subscribing to rules that may evolve.
And
So
recognize.
to your point,
Right.
Trustee Broad, we cannot be exact on certain things. You just can't, because
I-
you have to have,
I-
it has to be fluid and
If
flexible.
we can't be exact on it, and then I would rather have it in a resolution, but I'd rather what we have to not be ambiguous, and to put as much protection in there for residents as possible. Like, I don't remember reading that there's no penalties for leaving. That should be
That may change.
We recognize
That's the point.
that residents.
I hope it doesn't, because that's one of the.
There will be no penalty. He was crystal clear that there
He
would be no
was,
penalty
yes.
for leaving.
So-
And I believe the PSC enabling regulation says that. If the PSC changed that enabling regulation, this board could say, that's no fair, we're out, and we can pull out.
This doesn't require us to participate. It
Or
authorizes us,
any
allows us to
individual
participate.
resident can say,
But-
that's no fair, I want it.
Okay, I understand that
Right.
going into a separate document that we have to approve and pass, but again, it's a law that we're going to, you want a good law, I think we all agree, right? I mean, I can't imagine any of us not
But I don't
wanting
think
something
including-
good on the law.
I don't think including all those details makes something good or bad. It could be that the ESCO is still a money saver with an increase in a percentage of a fee. That doesn't make it a bad law.
No, I'm not saying that would make it a bad law. If that is memorialized in a resolution, and we can take action and have flexibility, fine. But when you're putting a law, you have to be specific with what details you are putting in here, so they're not left open to interpretation by a future board. And that's really important. I mean, 10 years from now, they could look back and say, what were these guys smoking? Because, this doesn't make any sense to me. But if you put in a solid, unambiguous law, you're in good shape. And the details, you could put that in the follow-up resolution that you said we have to pass anyway.
So I just want to say that, our record alone includes on the April 13th meeting a 43-page document that included the many pages of application from Sustainable Westchester to the Public Service Commission, as well as the Public Service Commission's press release reporting that they had okayed this project, and the specific language of their decision as of February 26, 2015. So I don't think a future board is going to lack for information about how this all came about and what was promised at the time. So I think,
our resolution had a lot of details in it as well, and they'll look at that. That resolution will be on the record, and the more detail in that resolution would make the law more palatable and more able to follow than it would without those changes, without the ambiguity.
So let me just say that right at the end of the PSC document, I'm sorry, the end of the Sustainable Westchester document, the application of the PSC, they say, by enabling this action, the Commission can help Sustainable Westchester lock in low prices for an extended period of time because current price conditions are likely to change. A delay is likely to result in higher prices over an extended period of time. For the above stated reasons, petitioner requests action by the PSC. Then the PSC responded in the end by accepting that. So,
I rely more on what this board passed because that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And I think that a lot of that was covered in the resolution, and you're saying that we have to pass another resolution.
We do, and I confirmed that with Eric again today.
And that would be those other items would be in there.
And I think
that's
that
fine.
resolution is specific to the proposed contract.
Okay.
So,
That would be helpful.
all right. Any further?
So when will you get back on?
I'll call Eric again tomorrow about this. So,
Okay, and
as mentioned at the outset, for anyone who may have lost track of this, we are not going to vote on this tonight, and the central reason for that is a point of confusion that has arisen in Albany and with some ESCOs about whether the gross receipts tax on gas and electric, which in the case of the Village of Pleasantville, generates, roughly speaking, $100,000 a year. Is that right, Patty?
A little over.
And has been a piece of our budget for a long time, would still apply to ESCO purchased energy. So that obviously is a key piece for us to understand, and that needs to be resolved. That's an issue that has just arisen on the radar screen, and so for that reason, we're going to sit tight and we'll report to you how that develops. So I'll go back to Eric Gordon with these
Okay.
questions that we've raised tonight, and appreciate the comments of all people who spoke tonight, as well as anybody else who has anything to say to us. Jeff, want to?
How will we find out when the next meeting is regarding?
Okay, so the question was, how will we find out when the next meeting is? The best mechanism, if you're a person who pays attention to email, is to sign up for our agendas, as Joe mentioned earlier. If you go to pleasantville-ny.gov, the village website, pleasantville-ny.gov, in the left-hand column, you can click Subscribe to News. And Subscribe to News allows you to choose the things you want to get. Village Board agendas, Planning Commission, Architecture Review Board, recreation notices, general notices, reminders of of water bills, whatever it is you want. You choose the things you want and subscribe, and then you will automatically get the agenda for our board in your email every Friday for the following Monday.
And you guys never share that.
Huh?
That's
You
not
don't
true.
share the emails with anyone.
No.
We do not. Actually, as a matter of fact, we don't even have them. They're in the hands of our service provider. So we will not try to sell you aluminum siding.
Yeah, we don't have an email, you're right, we
But
don't have an email database.
It's a great, and this, just to be clear, is completely unrelated to what I mentioned before about Code Red, which is the emergency thing. This is just about news, and you can choose the things you want, and if you decide you're getting things you don't want, you can always go back and unsubscribe. But you'll simply get an email. That email will include a PDF document or a click. You can click into the agenda on our website, and all this stuff is there. But what you'll get in your email is the list of all the agenda items, and you can see when these subjects are up for grabs, as well as anything else. And so I know it feels a little civics geeky, but that is one of the ways in which, at very, very low time cost, everybody can keep abreast of what's being discussed, not only at this board, but at any other Village of Pleasantville board. And, you know, I know lots of people who get it, and they say they scan it for 15 seconds and click delete if there's nothing of interest. And if there's something of interest, they'll call one of us or plan to show up or choose to watch it on television. Or if you're not in town or don't have cable television, you can watch it from PCTV76.org. Somebody told me not long ago that there was a subject of specific interest, and they watched the village board meeting from a hotel in Spain. So how's that for dedicated civics interest?
And I think Patty's watching the Mets over there.
No,
So pleasantville-ny.gov. Two things to do while you're there. Subscribe to news and subscribe to Code Red.
I have one, I hate to do this, but I have
Go
one
ahead.
comment left on this.
All right. We haven't closed yet, so.
Okay, so Minnie hit every other concern that I had, but one thing I didn't like, or I'm concerned about, I just wanted to ask what you guys think, is in 4B, the law specifically states Sustainable Westchester will be the agent that does this. And I didn't know if a law should stipulate the partner with whom the village is working. If for some reason Sustainable Westchester goes away, does it have, is it correct to sort of clamp us down to one vendor like that?
we
in a
could
sense?
always rescind this law, and a future board could rescind it.
Or couldn't we just put something in there that says, or its designated agent, or something like that, which it's...
I don't know,
gives us-
doesn't that make it looser, not clearer?
Yeah, but shouldn't
President?
it be a little looser, or should we, in the law, I mean, it seems to me like the law should say that Pleasantville will work with someone to do this, and then the resolution would say, we're going to choose so-and-so to do it. That's how we do all the other work that we do. We don't say we're going to have Munis in our law. We say we're going to have a system that does this stuff.
I mean,
and
I
then we
guess
choose
in this
Munis.
particular case, it's responding to the reality that Sustainable Westchester is the only entity
Yeah, I know.
that is entitled
I
to
know.
do this.
That's why
And
it's a question more
in
than
some
anything.
future environment, if, you know, Amalgamated Energy had the right to create a CCA aggregate buying pool.
It just seems like in the law,
Yeah.
the law shouldn't stipulate with whom we work. The law should stipulate what we're trying to accomplish with those that we work with. Problem? Not a problem?
I just don't know how you word it.
Couldn't
I
you just
don't
say or its
disagree
agent? I
necessarily,
mean, you
but-
wouldn't in any other contract or any other legal binding thing, you wouldn't want to, you wouldn't want to have something like this focused on one partner. What if you don't want to work
But I-
with that partner?
But I think that the
You're going to redo the law.
the spirit of this law, though, too, is that it comes from this
I
42
understand.
partner group. I wouldn't be comfortable if we put on another agent, because this whole thing is pushed around what Sustainable Westchester has deemed to be this process and procedure that we're all
But-
going
so then
for.
if for some reason, that hopefully never comes about, but if for some reason we can't work with Sustainable Westchester, or they lose their
We
mandate from
can
the
rescind
PSC.
our law and we can just not participate.
I mean, the
But
odds are not
Wouldn't it be
high.
easier just to say we could choose
Well,
who
you
we
mean
want to do?
sanitize
No, but there's
Sustainable
so many
Westchester from the
details
whole
about how
law?
we do stuff.
No,
in
not
here.
at all. No.
I mean, it's mentioned multiple times.
Yes, I know, but the thing that the one that I sort of hung on was in 4B, where it says Sustainable Westchester, on behalf of us, will do this, and
But I mean,
It
in
seems to me like
3A,
it's
it
their
says
program.
it says it's the Sustainable Westchester program.
It's all built around what they deem to be the way this is going to work. If we went out to somebody else, we might have to create a whole new law just because the whole process and procedure would be different.
Yeah, the PSC really is dealing with the Sustainable
Yeah.
Westchester.
so if Sustainable Westchester lost that mandate, we would need to redo the law.
I mean, the only other thing you can say is
Yes.
that we're authorizing ourselves to participate in a community aggregation program. Period.
Well, as
You can do
authorized
that.
or as dictated by the PSC. I mean, it seems to me like that sort of 30,000 foot level is more what a law would do. That the village of Pleasantville is going to do this, and
You know, I
who we
think,
do it with
I
would
mean,
be
I
subject
understand
to-
your point, but I mean, rescinding the law, if it ever needed to be rescinded, is
It's not a big deal.
not a big deal, and it's nearly unimaginable that in the near term there'd be any other player to do this with, or any other player that we want to do it with. I mean, I guess.
I understand. I
Right.
get all
Yeah,
that.
I
I'm
have a
just,
question.
I don't like being
About
Maybe.
that, Mindy, I have a question for you about that, because I take your points well, that a local law should be specific and make specific
Someone else.
points and give specific procedures for what we're doing. But what Steve is talking about is making it much more general. I'm just curious how you feel about that.
or at
because
least the
No, I-
chance to make it
Right,
general
I
if you need
see,
it.
I totally see his point that, you know, you're limiting yourself, but then again, the PSC is limiting us to just Sustainable Westchester. So, you know, I would say that as much as I agree with you, that I would like to see it say, the purpose of the community choice aggregation, no matter who is administering the program. However, only one person is administering the program now.
But why would we? I mean, I'll certainly defer to you guys. Y'all have more experience than I do, but it would seem like what you just said would be the reason to say, comma, or whoever ends up doing this. I mean, give the village the
Yeah, you know
flexibility
what?
to choose
Right.
its partner that it chooses,
And to
not put
that
it
point,
in the law.
not only to whoever may succeed this
Right.
organization, but provided we're always a member of it, I think that's what you're
Right.
doing in there. That's all. So you
Oh, we
always
could
have.
say that,
Yeah,
provided
that we want to continue working with these people.
That's
if we
good.
don't, then we don't have to.
That may
but
be the way-
whole
As long as
law-
we're
the
always
whole
tethered to
law-
them somehow and
Right.
they're not out there.
I mean, this
Right.
is a
But
law,
that
like you
would
said,
be
for
the way.
stop signs
Mhm.
and zoning and all that. The law is invalid without Sustainable Westchester.
Right.
But the
Or any
the-
successor
the
organization
intent
to
of
which
the
we are a
law-
member.
What's
Right,
that?
Or any successor organization.
right.
They
You
change
feel-
their name to which we are a participating member.
Sure,
That's
but
all.
if we're making a law, like it seems to me like the intent of the law is still valid,
Yeah.
even though the partner that with whom we're doing it may or may not. Hopefully it is, but it
All right.
just seems like we would want to.
So what about
Do we have that?
what about
That's
in
good
section?
language.
Yeah,
Well,
because
hold
if
it.
we're
What
going
about
to change their name.
and couldn't that be addressed in section 2 definitions?
Yes.
Yes,
I was just looking
definitely.
at that.
Just Sustainable Westchester, a not-for-profit organization comprised of member municipalities in Westchester County, New York, or in the event
Or such organization.
some
that-
successor
yeah.
organization, or
Because-
whatever the right language is.
Because if you
that's the
look
place
at
to do it.
Yeah,
if you
to-
look at section 1,
To which the Village of Pleasantville
point C,
is a member.
it doesn't say. I mean, it points just it highlights a CCA, not
That's
as
correct.
much. You know,
So up there, it's not defining
It's
sustainable. It's
explaining-
lower that it does.
well, it's explaining that it's in the PSC petition.
And that motion, 14M0224,
Right.
is
Is what-
specific to.
Yes,
It doesn't give anybody else the
doesn't
right to
give
do it.
anybody
So
else
the
right.
whole thing dies without that.
There would be
Not
a
only
new
us,
motion.
but everybody.
There'd be a new motion.
There'd be a new motion.
All right. So I Thank you. I just wanted to bring it
All
up.
right.
It seemed to me a little awkward to have
Yes,
these guys
I agree.
specific in a law. We don't clamp ourselves down to any other vendor when
No,
we're talking
that's a
about.
very good
In this
point.
case, if the whole caboodle dies without that memo, then all right, I'm good.
And if Con Ed dies, then we can all
light
start
fires.
campfires.
That's
And,
right.
you know. All right. Any further comment on community choice aggregation?
I like wind power.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The public hearing is
She
closed.
certainly did.
As mentioned, our agenda
But
included.
you know what? I'm sorry. You don't want to keep it open for comment? For written comment?
No, I'm going to tell you why. We talked about this. I think
Okay.
you were in the bathroom just for a minute. If we keep it open, we have to have a date, and we're not keeping it open for a specific date. What's the
So-
purpose of keeping it open? We're not even considering
would you
a
think-
resolution to adopt it. So
Okay.
I personally don't think it's appropriate to keep it open.
Okay.
I do think that we have to renotice it if it comes up again, and we have to let people know.
With
And
the
text will be
especially
different.
if there's changes.
That's right.
Well, and
especially
we-
if there's change.
I mean,
but even if
this-
there's not changes.
The matter of the gross receipts tax obviously is a deal breaker for us unless it can be resolved. And at the moment, everyone thinks it can be resolved, but until and unless it has been, clearly is there going to be some sort of language.
But
to
I
cover
think, I think that as much as, and that's, I understand now why it should be closed. But I don't think that should stop us from making the changes we've heard from the public.
No, I agree.
and that we agree
Totally.
on by the board.
Yeah, and I'll have this
that
discussion
we-
with Eric
And,
and
and
communicate
again,
back to
I'm still not voting for it, but if you're going to have a law, let's just have a good one. So
There
that
you
was
have a
my-
dedicated trustee.
Totally agree.
That's right.
Working to improve a law
That's
that
right.
she's
Moving
opposed
to approve a law that I'm not voting
That's
for,
right.
but that's our job.
All right, so, and we'll return the favor if we get the chance. So Resolution 118 on our agenda, which was the community choice aggregation resolution, has been pulled because of the question about the gross receipts tax, as discussed. So we're going to begin with 119, the check register. Steve.
Resolved that pre-check register dated July 13th, 2015 for fiscal year 2014 to 15, covering pre-check numbers 80948 to 80961, has been reviewed and they are hereby approved as listed below from the general fund $39,931.75. And further resolved that pre-check register dated July 13th, 2015 for fiscal year 2015-16, covering electronic check numbers 2176 through 2229 and pre-check numbers 80962 through 81101 have been reviewed and they are hereby approved as listed below from the general fund, the water fund, the capital fund, the refuse fund, and the pool fund, a total of $214,380.52.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions on the check register?
I'm just curious how long we continue to pay under 2014-15. When does that end?
This is it. That's a great question. This closes our books.
Does that catch us up
Hey,
with the
could
salt?
I just tell
and
you,
all
that's
that?
probably record time. There's a
yeah,
lot, I
thank
mean,
you,
just
Mindy.
considering we just closed May 31st, and it is July,
Correct.
that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, we waited on some invoices, and
Yeah.
it's not really
Yeah,
something.
no,
that
I
we-
understand there's stragglers that hang up
Yeah.
and down. I'm just curious how long
And
typically
the
go.
auditors will
This
be
is
in in
not big.
August. We'll have our audited report sometime September.
Great.
So we're moving along well.
Patty, the check to Vinco was a final payment now?
Yes,
For
yes.
the
I
pool
wrote a little
renovation?
note on that.
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
we do the
there
budget
was.
amendment, I put the total in there, I think. So yeah, that's finished.
Do we accrue the music festival expenses on the go-forward basis, or if we cut a check in January, does it accrue for 14 and 15?
Yeah, yes, we consider it a prepaid expense.
Okay, so it accrues.
That
It
is
accrues
correct.
going forward.
It
Okay.
accrues to the year of the
To the
event.
year.
For the year that it is obligated
Right.
for.
Got it. Got it.
All right, any other questions on the check register? No. All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. Mindy, 120.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees has reviewed the minutes of the meeting held on Monday, June 22nd, and they are hereby approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? There's a fruitful paragraph from Trustee Lord reporting about the duck race, but he said more about it this time, so you may want to read it next time.
Good reason to look at the minutes of our meeting.
Exactly, they're quite exciting. All in favor of the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Colleen, 121.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the surplus a Sharp LCD projector.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, yes.
So this is a monstrous projector purchased, what, 10 years ago?
It's a great doorstop if
Yeah,
anybody needs one.
it's hard to imagine that the law requires us to have a resolution to get rid of
Exactly.
a digital
Especially
projector that's
with
10
the-
years old.
With the graphics, the graphics for the advertising of this should really be.
You know, but interesting, 10 years
I love
ago,
the eyeless
it
humans
cost
down
just
there.
under $10,000.
They look like some kind of horror.
I mean, it was a huge asset on our books.
Right.
Have we priced it to know what something like that is worth now?
It has no value.
Zero.
It really has
Yeah.
no, because the bulb is like $300.
So why do we
sell.
surplus it? Why don't we? Are we not just throwing it away?
Well, we put it on auction. Well, this allows me to
Like I
get
would be
whatever.
doing at my house if I had
Yeah.
this.
What about TCTV? Do they want it? A 10-year-old sharp projector?
Machine runs out the window.
You
It's
got
on-
to surplus it in order to throw it away.
It's on our books as an asset.
All right.
Yeah, we have to dispose of it
Fair enough.
properly.
All in
Otherwise,
favor?
we'll-
Aye.
We'll wonder
Motion
where it
approved.
went. Someone will wonder where
Joe,
it went.
122.
Let me scroll to it. There we go. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the assessor to amend the fiscal year 2015-16 assessment roll to reflect small claims assessment reductions, SCAR, settlements as follows. I'm going to give the addresses and the amounts, I suppose. 4 Douglas Drive, originally assessed at $54,200, amended to $45,550, a reduction of $8,650. 86 Pleasantville Road, originally assessed at $58,600, reduced to $49,840, a reduction of $8,760. 66 Sunnyside Avenue, originally assessed at $64,400, amended to $60,600, a reduction of $3,800. 40 Willow Street, originally assessed at $61,000, amended assessment is $53,900, a reduction of $7,100. And 2 Mountain Road, originally assessed at $35,500, amended to be assessed at $34,125, a reduction of $1,375 in assessment.
Is there a second?
Second.
So these are all the result of hearings in the small claims assessment reduction process before hearing officers and represented by our assessor. Any comments, questions?
Were these the ones that came to grievance night? Would they-
Some,
some?
I mean,
Some of them.
they were all grievances
Yes.
from that were on the books this year. Not everybody went to the small claims assessment process. Some do, some don't.
Okay.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Steve, 123.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the amended 2014-2015 snow and ice agreement, increasing the reimbursement by $27,061.63.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we're getting extra money from the state.
We are. The state is keeping its promise to pay us an adjusted index if we have a bad winter. So
Good deal.
we're getting some money back.
We just love almost everything about all of it. Oh, I forgot. Only this we like. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 124. Thank heavens this isn't first.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adds Sterling National Bank to the village's authorized banking institutions.
Is there a second?
Second.
This reflects the transition of Hudson Valley Bank to become now Sterling National Bank. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 125, Colleen.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the following donations from CRP Sanitation, $350 to the Music Festival, and from the Contemporary Club, $200 to the Clinton Street Center Senior Programs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, CRP's contribution to the Music Festival is treated as a contribution, not a sponsorship. Why are we, I guess my question is,
It was a donation. It was just different. It
I
came
see,
to
so
us
it's different from
differently.
the other. Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you to
Thank
the
you.
Contemporary Club
Yes.
and to CRP Sanitation. 126.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the proposal from Frederick P. Clark Associates for planning advisory services for the fiscal year 2015-16 as per the terms set forth in their proposal letter dated June 30th, 2015.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this reflects an agreement that does not commit us to spend anything, but simply identifies the hourly rates. Sarah Brown, the planner from FB Clark that represents the village at the Planning Commission matters, will be billed at a rate of $195 per hour. Previously, it had been billed at $190 per hour for the past 3 fiscal year. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. 127.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the request from Sunnyside Avenue residents to hold a block party on Saturday, September 12th, 2015, from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second?
Those are fun.
Sounds like a good time. Sunnyside is always a good party. All in
You
favor?
crash that party, live nearby.
I occasionally crash it.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 128.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to enter into a lease agreement with Schlote Properties for off-street parking.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, you want to describe this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There is a parcel on Washington Avenue now that's occupied by a vacant house. It is just adjacent to the fire headquarters. If you look at fire headquarters, it's to the right of that property. By Schlote Properties. Schlote Properties is in the process of site plan redevelopment of that parcel and adjacent parcels. And one of the things that they're doing in anticipation of that house being demolished is creating some off-street parking for some tenants. And they have offered an opportunity for the village to also use that parking lot on an interim basis until such time as their development plan is actually formalized and finalized. So we are going to be leasing back that property in a similar manner to the way we leased the Holy Innocents lot on Tompkins and Manville. We believe we can obtain up to 20 spaces for limited use, maybe 1 hour parking or 2 hour parking, limited parking. It would be unmetered. It would be predominantly after 5 p.m. We're still working out the details, but we think this is a nice opportunity and a nice, I think, way to resolve an immediate need for both of us to have some additional off-street parking at really no expense to the village. The property owner will take down the existing structure, grade the property, provide proper positive drainage, be responsible for landscaping and also for clearing the lot of snow and ice. And all we get to do is show up at a certain hour. So it's a good deal. But it's a temporary deal.
A temporary arrangement that will be on a month-to-month basis pending the further redevelopment of that project. But Patty and I met with Warren Schlote and with his architect and some of the people involved in his development proposal. And Patty, to her credit, came up with this creative solution, which is, I think, a win for everyone, as she described.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. I do a little work for Warren Schlote and Schlote Properties. Not on this at all, but
Fair enough.
I'll abstain.
Thanks, Joe.
Understood. Motion approved. 4 with 1 abstention. 129.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments. $2,977 from contingent to code enforcement retirement payout sick, $2,044 from contingent to code enforcement retirement payout vacation, $2,977 from contingent to refuse code enforcement payout sick, $2,044 from contingent to refuse code enforcement payout vacation, for a total of $10,042, and appropriating fund balance, general fund, and transfer to capital pool complex renovations to close the project in the amount of $34,062.73. Again, transferring to capital for pool complex renovations.
Is there a second?
Second?
So are these transfers this fiscal year, Patty?
Yes, these are this fiscal year. This resolves the payout for Steve Buckafuska, who left us June 1.
Right. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
That was number 129. We have one additional resolution that wasn't on our original agenda. Joe, number 130.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the appointment of Richard Fernandez as a part-time / fill-in court attendant for the Pleasantville Village Court, effective Tuesday, July 14, 2015, at a salary of $20 per hour. Said appointment is subject to the satisfactory completion of a background check by the police chief.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
We,
Patty?
we've already gone through.
No, I can tell you, though, that he's highly qualified. We are losing one of our court officers, in fact, our original court officer, who just happily took a position, full-time position with New York State Department of Corrections. So something he'd been waiting for a long time, and we'll miss him, but we do need some assistance with court security, so we believe that this person will work out quite well.
So this gives us a total of 2? Or?
This gives us, we will keep Eli as as a substitute if possible, but we don't know what his schedule will be right now. So
Right.
we will have 3 on the books.
On the book, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. That's the last of our agenda items. Is there any new business? Comments from the public?
I
Comments
just
from the
want to
press?
say one thing about, we lost another incredibly great man in our village, Lou McKinney.
Yeah.
I'm just still devastated that he passed. But he was a great presence in our village and at our Veterans Hall and at our senior center, and told some wonderful stories. And I'm sure everyone in the village has bought a red poppy from him for sitting outside the Grand Union. And I always used to make sure that he had suntan lotion on, because he was always sitting out there and he had that skin, and he would say, "Don't you worry about me, Mindy. You need to worry about the fact that I can't vote and I own property in the village of Pleasantville, but I live in the town of Mount Pleasant." So he always was very upset about that. I miss him already, and he told some great stories about World War II all the time, and I will never forget. I will never forget them. So.
Thank you.
Likewise.
I'd like to add something. I mean, Lou McKinney was our number 1 and number 2 ticket holder for 10 years in a row at the music festival.
Yeah.
He insisted on ticket number 1 and ticket number 2.
Sat right in the front row.
And we gave it to him
Good.
for 10 years in a row.
And that,
he's just a very
and
he's a
that
very
was mentioned
colorful
from the
presence.
stage
Yes.
yesterday at
I
the
missed
music
him.
festival.
I missed him at the festival.
That we
Because
missed
he
him
used to
there,
sit in the
so-
same spot
yeah.
all the time.
Lou was a speaker at our Memorial Day service a few years back, and spoke very movingly about his experience in World War II, and told a bit about a remarkable life story when he came back from World War II and arrived in New Haven and walked in the admissions office and enrolled at Yale and went to classes the next day. So he was a remarkable man, and I think that a memorial of some kind will be arranged for the fall. So,
I'm glad you brought that up.
yes, thank you for that. All right, anything else? I meant to mention at the outset and forgot to that our Pleasantville Farm Market earned the Best Farm Market in Westchester award in Westchester Magazine. And we encourage everybody to get down to Memorial Plaza on Saturday morning to see just why they have, for now, a couple of years in a row, been rated as the best farm market in all of Westchester. So congratulations to everybody on the Farm Market Committee. Pretty fantastic result for a great bunch of people running a
Hope
great
everybody
program.
voted
So-
4 or 5 times, right? I did.
Early enough.
All right.
The All-Stars.
We will be adjourning and going into an executive session on matters of litigation. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you for your time.